go. We're there, are we? Oh, yeah, looks like we're live. So I'll mute this because I've got you in there. We're there, are we? Oh, yeah, looks like we're live. So I'll mute this because I've got you in there. We're there, are we? Hello, can you hear us, guys? Oh, yeah, looks like we're live. Hello, can you hear us, guys? I don't know. Oh God, maybe they can just hear me. Can they hear me? Oh, hi guys. There you go. There you go. Aiden's sound isn't working, guys. We're just getting him on. Obviously, as much as I'm here
Oh,
as
there we
the
go.
co-host,
Now it's
there we
working.
go.
Now it's lighting up. We're okay now.
Yeah, and it's obviously Aiden's the man of the moment, so it's his opinions that we want to hear.
Right. Okay. I think we are good to go. So hello to everyone that's sort of tuned in. We're gonna do a little. Will's just gonna do the typical podcast intro just in case for those listening on there. So Will, do you want to lead us in?
Yeah, will do. So hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Discussing the Resilient podcast.
Live.
That's it, live. Yeah. I mean, we do have a previous live episode which I haven't actually put on yet, which is I'll hold my hands up. So after this, Ian's reminding me that I need to get that up on Spotify and things for the people who don't just YouTube, and obviously, the people who are on Spotify. If you are listening to this one or the other one that we're going to post, there is also a YouTube. Live stream with this within, doing some visual stuff as well, where he's going to put the maps up from the event, kind of talk through some of the things, well, some of his tactics in the game, where he deployed, where the opponents were and how he sort of moved, how we sort of combated things tactically, because obviously, man of the moment again. I'll caveat that I was also at Leeds running Chaos Knights, but I didn't have the same result as Aiden. I only played for the first day. I should have took Death Guard in hindsight because I did go for more of a funsies, but I've been struggling a
Yep.
bit with
Will,
Death
now
Guard.
UKTC is saying Death Guard has a 50% win rate and is fine. This is your fault. You needed to come and lose a lot more.
That's it, yeah. I need to be every man, be a norm and pull your win rate down.
So if we don't get buffed, we're blaming you and me apparently.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, there we go. My fault for not underperforming, and your fault for overperforming.
Yeah,
That's how I'm
100%.
going to counterbalance it. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I didn't go and lose 5 games. next time I'll do that. But like I say, I mean, we'll obviously run through the sort of games that Aiden had, and you can sort of talk through the list. Obviously, with chat being here as well, anything that people want to sort of put in there, Aiden will try and sort of get round to it, and I'll try and prompt him if something pops up. But yeah, I mean, Aiden, I suppose like you sounds like you can do a bit of an intro, I guess. I don't know where to start, and if you want to run through the list or
Yeah, I guess we should start with what I took, I suppose. So, so just quick, so everyone's sort of, I just dropped my paint off my desk. There we go. This didn't spill. We're all right. So obviously we got back from weekend after playing Leeds Super Major, so it's UKTC, the sort of biggest. It is the biggest events in the UK, isn't it? They like circuit they do.
UKTC are definitely the biggest in the UK. Yeah. I think Goonhammer do some quite big ones as well, but UKTC eclipse most things, I think.
Yeah, so we obviously it's 5 rounds, and obviously if you get to the top cut, you stay for extra. But we don't talk about that. I managed to get 4-1 result with Death Guard, so I'm super chuffed. I think we had a bit of rough pairings, I won't lie. We'll get into them, but it was, for anyone who's just wondering right now, we had 3 games against Custodes, Genestealer Cults, and then an Eldar. So not exactly the nicest pairings I could have got. I think I upset the pairing gods a bit. But we managed to plough through and make it work, and managed to secure a 4-1. Very close to getting that win on that 4th round, but unfortunately GSC nipped it at the end in one of the best games I've ever played. The guy was awesome, and it was such a close game. But we'll get to that when we get to that game. So let's go through what I took, I suppose. So click my name here. Hopefully this will load up. and everyone can see this, hopefully. So,
Yeah.
the list, obviously, Death Guard and whatnot, we're once again trying my best. um, so honestly, most of it's fairly similar to the last list we took. The main change is that we basically dropped the Plague Marines and the Rhino, and added in some extra anti-tank and some more secondary mission play. So we've still got the staple character package, which is the Sorcerer and Terminator armor, who it was a bloody godsend in those Custodes games. Lord of Virulence is also just incredibly useful to have with the PBC combo. Mortarion, who I genuinely believe has to be in every competitive list at the moment. Um, the reason I say this is because to me, Morty is the only thing that sort of makes Death Guard a bit unique with that aura. No other army sort of can just ignore like minuses to wound, hit, damage being
Uh,
the huge one because in
I'll
UKTC,
correct that one quickly because I
go on.
mean UKTC ruled otherwise, didn't it? But I think Trajan in his rules does the same thing, doesn't he? But
Well,
UKTC had a really
yeah,
weird ruling on it that didn't make any sense.
yeah, but even in Trajan, it's just for his unit, whereas Morty can affect everything near him.
Oh, was
It's
it
not,
right? I
yeah,
didn't realise
it's
that
not
at
an
all.
aura for Trajan. So the fact that this is the way it is, it's sort of like something people don't really prepare for when they're making lists, and it's a weird skew that we have. He's sort of like our only. Everything else our army does is done better elsewhere, pretty much. Maybe not anti-infantry 2+, we do that quite well, but everything else, toughness is done better by Custodes and Necrons. Speed is done a lot better by everyone else. Actual raw damage output, Marines can beat us on. But the one thing we have is this ability to basically get everyone's defensive abilities and just say, no, you're not having them. And I think that's mega important, and why Morty for me has to be in every list, because people build these lists with the ideas in mind that this unit's going to be minus one damage, this unit's going to be minus one hit, and he just says no. And it's such a powerful ability to have. So I would 100%, if you don't have a Morty, probably start getting Morty. So yeah,
There
let
we
me have
go. eBay's instantly sold out, Aiden. There you go. You said that there, and everyone on eBay has just gone now, just because you said that there.
um, so I was looking in chat real quick. Would you prefer Imperial Knights or Custodes? I'd honestly prefer to fight. That's hard. Imperial Knights, I think, are lamer, but Custodes are just a pain in the ass, if that makes sense. Neither is the answer. Can I please just fight Vanilla Space Marines or Sisters of Battle or something like that? That would be nice.
I think
um,
to add to that as well, just with that particular question, because Death Guard have such a big anti-tank problem.
yes.
I'm not saying the Custodes are easier, but Knights are just naturally hard.
Yeah.
So I think, just because of the profiles that we get access to in our codex,
It's not the
Custodes
greatest.
might be a tiny bit easier, but I mean, I'm saying that as someone who's played Imperial Knights but not Custodes, so Aiden's opinion holds a lot more weight than mine there.
Custodes just stress me out on those 4-ups. They either make them all or fail them all, as we'll find out. Um, else in the chat, Aiden, do you feel like your list may be missing something like a tyrant? I wonder who that is. I wonder if that's that fella, that Sam fella who was running two night tyrants and managed to go undefeated at Leeds. I wonder.
Oh, I did not take a loss. I thought you went
he
4-1,
no, he
Sam.
was 4-0 when he got a draw. Um,
Oh,
Honestly,
fair play,
funny
Sam.
stories from his games. Honestly, you need to have a chat with him if you can. It's funny stories. And he
Yeah,
almost
he's a
sold me
good
on a
guy.
tyrant. I do want one now, I'll be honest. But yeah, anyway, back to the list. Apologies, everyone. Typhus, I think, still comes along. Again, he just has that weird ability that people don't normally have with that, 18-inch basically can target anything he wants for D6 mortal wounds. Um, he can just shoot assassins, which is really nice. He can shoot death jesters, which came up in both the games against Eldar and Custodes that brought assassins. Um, it's just really solid. Also, you can do the whole thing where you've lost some poxwalkers, you shoot at some guys, kill some guys, respawn. It's technically giving you like almost like a 3-inch, 4-inch movement boost, so that's really nice. Plus flat free damage on his weapon is very good in the Custodes matchup. Again, we'll touch on why. So yeah, so the new into the list, we have the Chaos Spawn. These are okay. Yeah, I kind of just put them in because I had 75 points left. Sort of tempted to maybe try a Beast and Nurgle instead, because Beast and Nurgle are toughness 9, which I think's hilarious. Um, but at the same time, they're not the worst unit. They're T5, 4 wounds, 5 up, feel no pain. Honestly, they were just either doing actions. 8-inch move's pretty good. I did use the 8-inch move sometimes to go out for like an early area denial or something like that if you drew it turn 1. But mainly, these were just nice because if like some Custodes Terminator is teleported in your backfield and shot at 10 cultists, because of blast, because of AP1, chances are the cultists die and toughness 3 on the cultists. Whereas it's much harder to do against the Chaos Spawn because they're obviously T5, 4 up save, so they have a 3 up in cover, and then also with a 5 up feel no pain. The math starts to really come in your favour to sort of survive in those sneaky little antics. Um,
I thought the Chaos Bone was a stroke of genius, to be honest. Like, I know you're sort of playing it down. Obviously, you were the one who played the game with them. But when I played my games with Death Guard, um, I I struggled to get to the midfield objectives in the early turns. I found that the army was so slow without a Rhino and a Plague Marine, or Plague Marines, and the tax was just so much on the points that it just wasn't worth it. So I thought you found some really clever tech with the spawn because I think we talked about this. I was saying how annoyed I was that possessed are legends because
yeah,
legends
they
would
look
also
really
do
good
that
as
job
well in the rules.
perfectly. Yeah, so I thought the spawn was super clever tech. I mean, I just looked over it because I know in all the other chaos indexes, there's better than ours for the same points. So I'll have it's exactly the same plus an extra rule.
Yeah,
So I thought, well, they're just nothing there. But for us, for Death Guard specifically,
it's just the
I
age
actually
moving
think
it.
they fit a really good hull. Yeah, I thought that
So
was a stroke of
someone
genius
in
when I saw
chat's
you do
just
that.
slightly reminded me with desk spawn, best spawn. So for people who don't know, on the first day I actually forgot my chaos spawn completely at home. Now Will did sort me out for day two, but for day one I was playing 75 points down. Um, one of the fellas did let me use the spawn as proxy for two models that I had, which was nice of him. I'm not gonna name which one because I just don't want anyone to feel bad because they were perfectly fine to say no, I'm not okay with you using them because they weren't even the right base size. It was like a plague surgeon and a Noxious Blightbringer. I just said to them, look, all it's going to do is sit on my home objective. Are you okay with it? Technically, it's worse for me because the bases are small, so they can't even screen out as well. Um, and yeah, one fella I'm using, weren't so okay with it, which is fine. Like no problem against it. So
I think it's quite snide that those people didn't let you use it. I mean, that's why I made sure to get those other ones to you on the Sunday because I thought the higher you go up, when you were 3-0, I don't know why people are like that. Like, I just think it's pointless. Like, I understand if people are like from the start of the game trying to proxy like a beer can as a fucking dreadnought or something stupid like
beer
that.
cozies as met guns.
Yeah, yeah, but when you're actually like, it's clear that that it's not like a strong model. Do you know what I mean? It's two chaff models that it's quite obvious, and whether they are there or aren't there, they're very rarely going to swing a game, and especially when you're playing the most underpowered faction in the game, for people to be like, nah, mate, like, why? Do you know what I mean? Obviously fair play to you for for sort of like sort of saying to people, well, that's really nice. You were really nice to them by not saying what I said basically, and digging your heels in and saying, well, there's no reason why I can't, like other than I literally forgot them. But like you say, testament to you even more for playing 75 points down and still getting those wins.
It's all right. Like I went to see the judge at first, see if they had any spares. They didn't, and they informed me like obviously, if the opponent agrees to the proxy, it's fine. If they're not, he will have to pull them. So I didn't want to have that situation where I had to call a judge over. So as soon as they were like, I don't know, I was just like, it's fine. We'll just leave them. It's all right. So yeah, it is what it is. So carrying on. So yeah, we have the two units cult is still again great. Scout is brilliant. I didn't actually get any chances to get a turn one contamination on an objective, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, just having Scout was really nice for pushing out stuff like screens, or for if you worried, you deployed them aggressively, hoping to get turn one in case you got something like area denial again or something like that, or engage, and then you don't get first turn, you can just scout them back into safety. It sort of just allows you to be sort of like aggressive with the deployment of them. Also, Boil Blight. I managed to get a turn one Boil Blight again on someone with the scout move, first turn, move and advance near some custodian guard, Boil Blight, and then the mortars picked up the full squad of 4 shield guard, which was really nice.
Nice. So just for the people listening, what is Boil Blight? Just to sort
Yeah.
of run down and
So Boil Blight's a one command point stratagem where basically you pick one of your units and then pick an enemy unit that's within contagion range of that unit, and then until the end of the turn, all of your army, so not just the ones you selected, your entire army, if they shoot at the target you picked, gets the heavy keyword, so our PBCs stay still. They're now hitting on 2s because Mortarian's ignoring the penalty, +1 to hit, so 2s to hit. And they also get the ignore cover keyword, so it sort of works like a backup Lord of Virulence, but obviously if your Lord of Virulence needs line of sight, this is another way of getting that bonus. And dropping Custodes from like 2 up saves to 3 up saves is like it's literally you're doing double damage to them from your mortars. And then the way I sort of did it was, if my first 2 mortars did decent enough damage, I'd consider spending the Ferric Blight to make the next one drop them to a 4 up save to try and finish the unit, and it happened quite a few times. But it's a
Nice.
cool strat to play with, especially with cultists and scout move. People don't see it coming, and then you get in there and you drop a load of mortals in the face. It's quite funny.
Nice. So you're basically using it how people used to use the drones in early sort of ninth edition, or I
Yeah, with
suppose
like
even
flash
late ninth
outbreaking
edition.
and stuff.
Oh, it's quite smart. I hadn't thought of doing that. So again, this is why I'm this is why I'm struggling with Death Guard and you're going for one with them. So you're giving us all your secrets here, Aiden.
Giving it away.
Um,
So then we had the Death Guard Predator Annihilator. So look, when you compare this thing to like a Lancer, it's bad and it's not great. It's 130 points for 3 las cannons basically. One's twin linked, which is nice. Um,
it's down 14 as well on the top
yeah,
one.
it's
That's
not bad.
worth
It's not
mentioning
bad.
because it's the strong. It's actually the strongest weapon in our codex.
Yeah, yeah. Don't remind me. But honestly, I put this thing in just to kind of be able to threaten and be able to say to people, you don't just get to sit in the open at the back and be free from, return fire on any vehicles you have. And this little fella, I painted him up just before the event. I've never used him before. Normally you have the painting curse where the model you've painted like dies instantly.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
dies turn one, don't it?
yeah.
Just roll a save for it, nothing else.
Yeah, this thing had the opposite. This had the I'm going to prove myself, um, and we'll see what happened with him. But let's just say, I think he died once, and I think he racked up
Oh,
like over 1,000 points in kills.
nice,
Um, yeah, the little predator that could, I suppose. um,
nice.
then the rest of the list is basically what we've already had. 2 units of minimum death shroud, all the gauntlets, 3 paper scrolls, double spitter, 1 entropy cannon. Oh, sorry, the Nurglings at the bottom, 20 poxwalkers, and 2 units of free Nurglings, which are really nice to have because you don't always just have to use them for infiltrate. Sometimes I'd infiltrate them, but most of my games I actually just put both in deep strike because I think I was having this discussion with you. I was using
Yeah,
cultists in reserves to come on to do secondaries, but Nurglings just do it better because cultists
yeah,
never survive to make the OC worth anything. They're a bigger footprint because there's 10 of them, and there's only 3 Nurglings. They cost more, and Nurglings have deep strike, not just strat reserve, so they can technically come in anywhere, so it's much harder to screen out. And they can both do actions. Well, actions as called in temp. They don't have a name, but basically
yeah.
they were just more efficient at it. But I didn't want to get rid of the cultists because scout move's really good. But yeah, Nurglings just sort of fill that niche. So with Nurglings and cultists, we've got plenty of ways to sort of play that secondary game. Hence, this is why we always play tactical with this list. We don't really ever play fixed, and I wouldn't recommend playing fixed. But yeah, that's my list entirely. It's not too different, but a little bit different. No Rhino, no Plague Marines, which can feel a bit weird. I'd consider it more of a side grade than an upgrade. I think the Plague Marines and Rhino are okay, but I think if you want to focus more on the mission play, this is probably the better version. So it kind of depends. You risk a weaker flank because obviously you've got no 10 Plague Marines in a round to sort of hold another side of the board, but at the same time it's sort of like you get better mission play in general and better screening if you need it with Nurglings and Chaos Spawn and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Makes good
that's the
sense.
version 2, should we say, of the list.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some questions to ask about the list, things that maybe you might all have considered, even if you've thought through them and gone through. But I think we'll do that at the end after you've gone through the games because some of the questions I've got, and I'm sure the people listening might just become clear when we sort of hear how the units functioned, or it might sort of bring up further questions as if you were to play this game again, would you like more of this or less of that?
Yeah.
So I guess before we sort of go into it then. But maybe just have a quick check in the chat, see if there's any questions that are worth sort of shouting out there, or
Yeah, so we got a fella asking if I deep strike both Terminator squads. Yeah, pretty much most of the game. Yeah, I think every single game I actually deep strike both. Yeah, they're always just good in deep strike. I never really found need to have them on the board. Again, Custodes aren't the fastest army. Genestealer Cults, I kind of wanted them to sort of apply some pressure back, so I didn't start them on the board either, which is risky because obviously there's a risk of getting screened out. But I knew they were kind of going to come down in my own territory, because it's an answer to when they pop up. If you put them down just beforehand, you're just going to get picked up for free by seismic cannons. So yeah, I'd always put them in deep strike unless you're about to get ran down by something like World Eaters, which are really fast. Then probably maybe on the board.
makes sense.
Okay.
One of the other questions, actually, maybe just before we go in, actually, there is one list question which I know I've thought about this and I've noticed in your list, and I think for my own games, I might have a bit of an inkling. But what about the sponsored weapons on the PBCs, and what's the thinking there? with the entry cannons and the spitters. I know we also talked about this on the when you went 5-0 with the list, because I remember sort of bringing this up there. But you've obviously stuck with that, and you've decided not to go all three with one, or or mix it up from what you had previously. So maybe is that something to sort of. Are there any more thoughts on that? Because obviously at this point you've had quite a few games, and what are the sort of, cause with those weapons it kind of gives them a bit of a different role, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the Plague Spitters, I mean, entropies to me, they're not great for anti-tank. Strength 10's not really where you want to be. Lethal hits is okay, does make it a bit better, but the problem is entropies. Entropies are decent. I don't think they're a bad gun, but the thing is, as someone's just stated in chat there, he said turn one you don't really have many people on the board. That's true. So one of the biggest fears for my list is sort of getting clogged in my own deployment by chaff. So having the Plague Spitters means the PBCs can basically free themselves from those kind of units. Also really good in a Genestealer matchup. If someone wants to drop in and drop blasting demo charges at you, sorry. Then can just obviously overwatch them. You don't have to be babysitting them with Death Shroud. But I didn't go full Plague Spitter because again, vehicles do exist, knights do exist, so having the two entry cannon shots just there if you need them alongside the Predator now, you've got about 5 las cannons in the list, which is decent enough to knock out like some vehicles. Obviously you're not going to be going around tabling knights in 2 turns, but just having the ability to spike some d6+1 damages could really swing a game.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit sad that the entry cannons are only strength 10. I mean again, I
It's
think
the
that's one of
range
the
as
big.
well, 24. It's grim.
Yeah, it's one of the big misses of our index. I think there should be strength 14 and range 36, because every other codex has a weapon, or a profile along those lines. But again, we've had our sort of crying at things, and now we're in the sort of this is what we've got to deal with. But I'd actually found in my test games, I found when you were moving the PBCs out, after the first turn, often the third one was kind of boxed in by the two in front of it. So actually the entry cannons were needed for the range, because the third spitters I often found I couldn't get in range, or it was good
Yeah.
to have one that could pop down the flank. So that was what I found. I'd wondered if that was something that had factored into the decision making.
Yeah, it does. Like sometimes, like trying to navigate 3 PBCs together is a bit of a pain in the ass as well at times, which isn't always great. Can be some boards are okay, like this first one here is quite a lot of open space, but as you get down like this one is a nightmare. Like, you got about here and here to move, and that's about it. Um, so it depends on the mission layout, but yeah, three plague spitters is probably just one too many. Um, so having one that can sort of sit back a bit and still be contributing is nice to have.
Yeah, I think that's fair. One of the things I've been impressed with the PBCs before we go into games, I'm impressed with the sluggers. The
Yeah,
sluggers
yeah, they
every time
proper
I
chip
play
away,
them.
don't they?
Yeah, like they're just always better than what I think they're gonna be. So
Yeah,
yeah, like if anyone is running that list, always remember to fire the sluggers. Don't
yeah,
just
yeah.
think
Don't
of it
forget
as
them.
chaff.
Do not forget those sluggers. So,
So yeah,
so yeah,
so go on then. In.
we'll go into first game then. So obviously this is the game I had a couple of days notice on. In UK we got our pairings about a day or two early. So this is the one I saw. So I opened the list and saw Adeptus Custodes, Real Sweat.
Before we go too far into the list, and obviously with this mission, there have been so many mission options. Maybe let's run through the mission that you
Yep.
were playing on, because obviously that links quite heavily into faction as well. Because
Yeah.
different factions, different missions mean a lot more in this edition than perhaps the last one.
Yeah, so we're playing Dawn of War. The UKTC trim up for anyone that's listening and can't see right now. You can get it just offline. It's free download. It's quite open, this map, but there is basically 3 objectives in a line along the middle, one in each deployment. Dawn of War deployment, so you're deploying on the long edge. And the special rule is that basically you can start to burn an objective that's in no man's land. And if you are still alive at the start of your next command phase, you score, I think it's 5 or 10, 10 I think, for burning an objective.
I
And
think it's 10, isn't it?
yeah, and the objective's then removed from play. So obviously this is kind of scary, especially when you go against the Custodes list like this one. So on this one we have. Remember I had a stream on my own last week talking about my fear of people seeing that list winning with the 10 shield guard blocks, and that becoming a thing. Yeah, it became a thing. So this list I had to face has a shield captain with an enhancement for the free move if I move near him. Trajan Valoris, as we said before, who was able to ignore modifiers but not damage in UKTC, which is nice for us. 2 units of 10 Custodian Guards, so 450 point units, 31 wounds in the unit because there's 1 shield in there. It's OC like 40 or something stupid. Yeah, it's
There's probably only Necrons have a chance of holding it off an objective.
scary. 5 Prosecutors, so 5 Sisters of Silence who are just going to hold the back. 3 Alarus Custodians, so a unit of 3 Terminator Custodes, a unit of 2 Terminator Custodes, and 2 Caladius Grav Tanks. Which, by the way, Forgeville didn't get the memo on Twin Linked because this thing actually doubled its shots and kept the Twin Linked rule, so that's fun.
Classic.
Nice.
Classic DW. Yeah, consistency across all boards.
Yeah. So, yeah. Um, so when we saw this list, obviously we saw the deployment. This is a good example of and that's a great game to show an example of how priorities and how thought process changes depending on what you're against, the mission, and what happens. So, obviously, first things first, when I looked at his list, and you look at it, what's the first thing do you think you're going to Plague Burst Crawler off? Prosecutors, easy kill.
I was going to say, is this to me or the chat? I feel like this is this is one for the chat, isn't it?
One for everyone. Even you can answer, Will.
Oh, even me. Thank you very much. Even a chump. I'll be honest. I would struggle with this. I probably would go for the Caladius, thinking that they're the things that are going to get the PBCs once they pop out, and also they're going to cut through the Predator like it's butter.
Yep, that's not a bad shot. So basically, it's a bit of a nightmare, like you said. There's not really great targets. Everything's on a 2-up. These things here are on a 3-up. These are also 1 wound, toughness 3, probably the easiest kill you're going to get. So my first thought was, well, if we kill the Prosecutors on this map, we managed to take out what's holding his home objective, because that's what they're going to be doing, chances are, and that's great. Then he's got to keep a unit back there. However, when we look at the actual map deployment and we take into the count that he has Caladius, he can actually keep a Caladius on this objective at all times and just keep popping left to right, and shooting, yeah? So killing the Prosecutors actually doesn't achieve as much, because the Caladius in the list, if it wasn't Caladius, we'd be happy killing them, but the Caladius, they're still going to be shooting, still going to be efficient, just hopping left to right out of that terrain. So killing the Prosecutors doesn't actually do us anything here. Shooting at the big 10-man shield bricks, all it's going to do if I kill one is give it movement, because they're just going to resurrect and come forward with the resurrected model, which isn't great because they're going to be coming to just hold the middle, and the problem is if they get to the middle real quick, we're going to start burning the objectives, which means then I have a turn to react, otherwise I basically can't score primary ever again. So that's worrying. So basically we deployed. As it was, I obviously put my PBCs and whatnot sort of behind the big L on the right, on the bottom right, hiding the best as possible from the Caladius. Don't want to get shot. Now, I was thinking here, Predator, Caladius. His Caladius, if I just put everything on the board, can basically wait for me to have to do something. I can mortar stuff, but it's going to take ages to kill. So his Caladius can just wait until Morty has to come out when he gets to the mid board, and then he's going to shoot him at Morty. So I thought to myself, okay, better idea, strat reserve the Predator, because then he has the threat of a Predator coming in and getting first shots on his Caladius, which makes him want to actually do something before I alpha strike him. Chances I'm not going to kill him, but it could happen, and he's not going to be happy about that. So Predator went in strat reserves, and because of that, my opponent then also said, right, you've got no Predator on the board, I can deploy these Caladius on the line. So now, the Caladius aren't on the back objective, which makes the Sisters want to be shot again by the mortars. So you can see how this is all clicking away in my head.
Nice. Okay.
All these thought processes are having to go through.
So
now,
you're kind of trying to give him a shit sandwich situation, aren't you? Where whatever he does, it's not a good decision for him because you're sort of putting him on the back foot and putting pressure on him.
Yeah. So he puts 10 Shield Guard also on the objective in his deployment. That's fine. I thought they were just going to move out. But then again, he gets first turn, by the way, and on his first turn he pays a command point to pick a custodian unit, so he can't pick the Sisters. He picks the 10-man shield guard, pick an objective they're on, and sticky it. Okay. So now we're looking at this like, so killing the Sisters achieves nothing. Okay. So we've already gone from not killing the sisters to killing the sisters to not killing the sisters again. So, what good is there in shooting the sisters? Well, we obviously have secondaries. Overwhelming firepower is a good one. So, if we draw it, obviously we can shoot the sisters and just get an easy overwhelming firepower for killing someone on rejective. If we don't, however, we do what I did do, which is I put one mortar into the sisters, and I picked up 3 of them, which is quite lucky. But I didn't shoot any more at them because the fact that there's only 2 of them now and they can't resurrect means if I do draw overwhelming firepower later, I don't only have to dedicate 1 PBC to it rather than 3 in a turn. Chances are, the turn I draw it, I'm probably going to do those PBCs shooting at Custodes, not the sisters. It also means at any point Typhus can come in, and now we only have to do 2 mortal wounds to him, so that's a threat. So you can sort of see like how it's all like things, the thought process having to come in. One other thing I did in every Custodes game, I'll say it now because it's the same in everyone. Typhus didn't go with the Poxwalkers. Yeah, so the reason was Typhus works with the Poxwalkers well because obviously anything he kills he regenerates. Not happening versus Custodes. You're not going to drop in, snipe 6 guardsmen with a spell or something like that and get 6 Poxwalkers, or you take some losses, you regenerate and get the extra movement. It's just not happening. Poxwalkers aren't killing Custodes because they're going to bounce off a 2-up save. So actually, it's better to take Typhus and put him with a unit of Death Shroud Terminators for the -1 to hit in combat, 'cause that's quite nice. But also, we're just basically going to use Typhus for his flat 3 damage weapon.
Okay.
The Lord of Virulence, because Flamers against this matchup, the AP0 ones, they're okay. They force a lot of saves, but it's AP0. So his reroll wounds actually aren't as important. So we're actually going to take him out of the Death Shroud and deploy him on his own. And all he's going to be doing is have the freedom, because of his reduced unit size, to drop wherever we need line of sight to ignore cover and hit on 2s. Because basically, when we go to kill these 10-man shield blobs, we have to throw the entire kitchen at them. The kitchen sink, the knives, everything. So the Lord of Virulence has to be able to provide the aura, but we also need Typhus' melee also to get in there. So
just to pause for a second,
yep.
Lord of Virulence, how did that work out? 'Cause I know you're going to sort of explain things, but did your opponents target him, or did you have so much of the threats that he got sort of left? Because to me or was he a sort of, did you think, well, he's a once and done unit at this point, so I'm going to spend him and I'm going to make sure I spend him well? What was the thinking to that sort of next level of that?
So Lord of Virulence was usually kept for the go turn. So the go turn is when basically I'm going to commit to trying to kill a 10-man blog. So because my opponent wouldn't get to react to that, chances are he can come in and do what I need him to do anyway. Now in this list specifically, because of how he deployed his Caladiuses as well, he moved the Caladiuses forward in his first turn. I didn't need the Ignores cover on them, so he held off the turn 2 deep strike or anything like that. But on the turn that he had to come in, I basically just dropped him back in my own deployment, just within range of the sprayer to put some shots in. But basically to a point where he'd have to shoot it with his shield guard, which is 2-up save. It's not really the most efficient thing for him to be shooting because he wants to be shooting the 3 Plague Burst Cosmog to throw in his face, the 6 Death Shroud, the Sorcerer Mortar. There's more issues for him to deal with than worrying about shooting this thing. And he never died. He never got shot. He was left to do his own thing all 3 games. So that was quite nice. It might be me that needs to turn Will up actually. Let me go on my audio.
If I speak there, that's me speaking. So if Peter can tell us whether that's right or wrong, because looking at mine,
I'll turn up the desktop audio, so hopefully you are louder now.
Is that better, chat?
They'll let us know, I'm sure.
I can fix it for the actual podcast and put it on Spotify and things, but
maybe I can actually. If I just turn up my actual volume, I might just turn you up. There you go. Have a speak now.
Hello?
Okay.
Is that working?
We'll find out in a minute.
There we go. We'll also cut this bit out the out the podcast. But yeah, thank you very much for letting us know there, chat. We really appreciate that.
So Predators in strat reserve. The enemy tanks are moving forward. His shield guard are moving forward in the centre. So in the centre, he has Trajan and the 10 block. And on the right, where my PBCs are behind this large L, he has the other 10-man with the shield captain. So the thing that makes Custodes so tough, especially in melee, is fights first, -1 to be hit, and -1 damage. Now Mortarion ignores 2 of those. So no -1 damage, which is huge because 2 damage is really much more powerful and impactful. And obviously not having -1 to hit is very nice because hitting on 2s is better than hitting on 3s. So Ollie, when it comes to strat reserves and deep strike reserves are 2 different things. So bear in mind Typhus is now in deep strike reserve, not strat reserve because he's with the Terminators. The only things we actually had in normal reserves was the Predator and 20 Poxwalkers, and that was it. And that's like, like 200, 300 points maybe? 250? I think it's like 250.
It's about there. It's around that. You can definitely do it anywhere. Like it's completely legit because, as you say, deep strike and strat reserve are different things. So you have to put at least half your army on the board
Yes,
with
1,000
half the
points has to be on the
units.
board.
Is it also units as well? Is it not? So if you've got 10 units, you have to put at least 5 on the board, or is it literally just points?
I'm not too sure. I'll have to check that. I know that was the case in the old game. I have enough on the board anyway because I have obviously I have a lot of cultists and I have the spawn, infiltrating Nurglings if I use them, and 3 Plague Scrolls are all 3 separate units. So it never comes up that, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. If your whole army has deep strike, you cannot deploy. No, so deep strike is an option. So you can deploy a deep strike unit on the board. So I could have Typhus and Death Shroud on the board if I wanted to start. But you can have up to 1,000 points of deep strike. Well, 1,000 points can be in reserves, of which any amount can be deep strike, but only 500 can be strat reserves.
Yeah, and also I think most people listening would probably know, just to be clear, if you put Typhus with Poxwalkers, he loses his deep strike. It's not that the Poxwalkers gain deep strike, Typhus loses it. So that's something I've seen people debating on a couple of places, and he loses deep strike. They don't gain it.
James just said it's both points and units. Thank you, James. So that you're clarified. So in this game we have the Death Shroud with Typhus, the Death Shroud with the Sorcerer, Lord of Virulence in deep strike. The Predator Annihilator and the Cultists are also in reserves, and the 2 Nurglings are in deep strike as well. So he moves forward with his Cladius because he's got no targets. He wants to try and get an angle. He moves a Shield Guard unit forward, not within range to be a threat to me yet. So I'm gonna leave that for now. It's not a threat just yet. And when you go for a Shield Guard unit, you have to go in hard. Chip damage doesn't help. Like I said, if I mortar it and kill one, he'll resurrect it, and then that extra 5 inches he got could then put me in danger. So we're not going to do that. So one thing he does do is he moves his tank forward, and he moves a unit of Terminators from behind his big L. He moves and advances them forward onto the objective on the left. Now the reason when he did that was kind of a mistake, because I'm gonna punish this. So it's a unit 2. Now his Terminators are really important for him because they have the ability to pick themselves up and put themselves back down, which for secondaries is massive. Because obviously if you get a secondary, you just go up, I'll pick it up at the end of an opponent's turn, put it in their deployment zone, there you go, scored behind enemy lines, etc. So at this point, the threats are the Cladius, because they're going to start getting angles soon, and the Terminators. So turn 2, we're going to bring in the Predator. We're going to also bring in the Lord of Virulence, and we're going to have our Mortars are all going to go into the Terminators, because now we can ignore cover, we're dropping into a 3-up save. There's only 8 wounds in those Terminators, and they're not ignoring -1 damage because of Morty, so only 4 have to go through to pick up the entire unit. And with the Cladius, we've also peeped out the tip of our entropy cannon, so we have entropies and the 3 glass cannon Predator. The Predator didn't come in at a weird angle in this one, he just came back in my deployment zone because he was running straight at me. So I basically just took whatever angle would give me no cover, because obviously as long as it's not obscured, he doesn't get cover. So he came in basically next to Morty, so which was nice. Managed to move Morty to keep him in aura range, so he's not getting -1 damage off that either. So we pound the mortars into the Terminators. The first 2 mortars pick up 1 Terminator, okay? Which is, it's not bad, it's not bad. However, this is again where we come back to the original point. I then spend the command point for Ferric Blight to make them have to save on 4s on the next one. Managed to drop something like 6 wounds on him, and obviously if 6 4-ups, he fails 3 of them on average, and it does manage to pick up that Terminator. So we've managed to pick up a unit of Terminators already. The Predator shoots, and I won't lie, this is where the Predator decided, I'm having none of this Custodian nonsense today. All 3 hits, all 3 wounds, fails every single invuln, 6, 5 and a 5 on damage, bang.
Oh mate, nice.
So the Caladius just goes up in flames straight away, which is really nice. So buzzing. So comes back to his turn. Shield Guard are getting close. Still no charge just yet. So sorry, I went first in this game. Not I got confused with the second game. I went first this one. So I bided my time first turn. Just did some cultisty things into the middle. I think I ran my Chaos Spawn into the middle for area denial. That was it. So he comes forward. I come in my turn to blow up his Predator, blow up one of his Terminator units, and we've also it only took 2 Plague Burst Crawlers to kill those Terminators because I did drop the Sisters down to 2 models as well. So yeah, Plague Burst Crawlers can really hit hard.
Nice.
That I remember now. It wasn't the Lord of Virulence. The Lord of Virulence was later. It was the cultist behind this here, this small L here. So he brought his Terminators and ran them to the middle of this objective. They moved, advanced, and they managed to get a Boil Blight off. That was it. So he Boil Blighted them. So that was that for turn 2. For the turn 2 Boil Blight. Happy days. But yeah, so he's cleared his down and the Terminators are down. He moves forward again in his turn. He's really getting close now. The next turn we're going to make combat. He's basically on the edge of the objective. So at the end of his turn, I rapid ingress into my own lines with Typhus and the Death Shroud. The only reason I want this is so they can then get the movement in my turn to make an easy 6-inch charge. So it's 11 for them. I move forward in my turn. Remember, Typhus moves 5 for some weird reason, so he actually makes a 5-inch move forward rather than 4.
Why? It just does. You've just pulled out my microphone.
Can you hear me there, Ian?
It's not the charger.
1 second. No.
Where's the charger?
It's on the floor.
You're not the same.
I don't know if you can still hear me in the chat there, guys. I can hear Aidan, but yeah, I think Aidan's headset might have gone here, guys. So if you're still on the,
I'm back. That was my girlfriend pulling out my headphones.
You're still on your old mic there, Aidan. It's coming through how mine normally is on the laptop.
Wait, what? What's happened?
You're still coming through on your laptop mic. You're not coming through on the headphones.
Oh right, yeah.
Sorry, guys, in the chat if you can still hear us. Hopefully, hopefully you're still there. Aidan's just dropped his headset and he's just getting it back. And you might still be able to hear him same as me with an echoey voice, but just in case, just to let you know what's happening there.
Is that working?
I feel like I should do some home music or something to.
Is that working well?
It's not. No, not for me.
Working.
Don't forget to turn the headset. Don't forget to turn the headset on again, Aidan.
Okay.
Right, this guy's always professional.
We're good?
Not for me, but if people in chat see why, it might just be through Riverside.
Riverside FM for us. That's why.
Yeah. As long as everyone on YouTube's good, that's the most important thing.
Right. Okay.
But if you can fix it. But like I said, don't.
Yeah, I'll fix it in a sec. She apologises, I'm sure. Yeah, she just reached over for the headset charger and instead just pulled out my headset.
Well, as long as that's what she was reaching over to pull out here, then
easy now, Tiger. So yeah. So we rapid ingress in because again, Typhus can then move forward to 5 and do a charge in my turn because basically I want to get the jump on him at this point. Combat's about to happen. Trajan's in the middle at this point, so he's going to start coming over. I have to deal with one of these 10-man bricks now. So my turn, we drop down everything we can. We even bring in our Poxwalkers in their backline to do a 9-inch charge into the Sisters. Even if they don't make it, Sisters of Silence aren't clearing out 20 Poxwalkers, so they're going to go and take that objective the next turn. So again, that's the kind of use we use for these Poxwalkers. We just find an opening where they don't have the tools to deal with that many Horde models, especially with a Feel No Pain, and then they just go and take over that part of the board. We talked about that in the last time we had this chat. So we go into this 10-man shield guard. So Mortarian's there, so we're ignoring all the defenses they've got. We drop in the Sorcerer. He's going to pop his super spell. We're going to drop every single PVC into them. We've got all the Flamers in range. The Predator is actually going to go for the other Caladius because that's still a threat. And then we're going to charge him with absolutely everything we've got. So this one we managed to pick up. I think we kill 6 shield guard with the shooting. Sorry, no, 7 because there's a character. There's 4 left. So that was nice. So 7 are dead from all the shooting, all the mortars, all the flamers, entropies. The last cannon predator pokes his head out, shoots the other Caladius, and guess what happens, Will?
Oh, did he kill it?
He
Guess
hits
what?
it all, he wounds it all, he fails every involved. 4, 6, and a 6, and my damage, boom. So this predator.
F you, Clearly, so I don't know. Fuck you, Clearly. And
Oh,
all of a sudden, I've started censoring myself. But
honestly,
yeah.
this predator was having none of it. He was just like, no, not today. No, it's
And did
just
the
for shooting
predator?
in Farber.
No one ever shot back at the predator then, because that's
Yeah,
always
so
my
in his, sorry,
concern with
sorry,
them.
in his turn he did shoot back at the predator. So I did the -1 to hit.
Yeah.
Wise. I had cover on mine, so I had a 5-up save against him. He hit with 2, so he got a bit unlucky. He hit on 3s and he rolled 2. He rolled a 1 and a 2. He wounded with 2, and then I made both 5-up saves. So this predator was
Nice.
genuinely having none of it. This predator was just like, no, I'm done.
Nice. That's really good.
Yeah, exactly. When that happened, I was just like, oh, this big, like this is really good. So we've got 5 shield guard left, 4 on a character. Mortarion charges in, Typhus and the Death Shroud charges in. Now, unfortunately, the plan was, after being hit by 3 Plague Burst crawlers, they have to make 3 leadership tests. If they fail any one of them, they can't fight first because they're battle shocked and can't use stratagems. Unfortunately, they passed every single one of them. But at this point, you're too far down the rabbit hole to not commit. So we commit. We go in, they pop fight first, and 4 shield guard and a captain take out all of the Death Shroud and drop Morty about 7 wounds. So yeah, those things, imagine if that was 10 man, they'd easily wipe them. They aren't fun. Custodes are stupid. Sustained hits, lethal hits. Yeah, not good. And 5 attacks per guy, flat 2 damage. And this is even with -1 damage up, by the way. We still lost that many guys, so not exactly ideal. But Typhus then swung back. He picked up 2, so now we're down to 3. Mortarion then swung. He rolled 3 ones to hit, and then he managed to wound the 2 that he hit, and then he passed both invulns. So Mortarion has a kill of 0 at this point, because again, Morty's not actually that great in combat. This fight basically carries on. At this point in his turn, he actually pushes into our backlines with Trajan. Now, the Poxwalkers did actually make their 9-inch charge last turn, so we do have his home objective. He's only got Trajan Blob, basically, this 3-man now, and then a unit of Terminators, which are lurking around somewhere. So he brings the Terminators to my backline. It's fine, they kill off some cultists, some spawn. It's fine. I think it was cultists they killed. Not too bad, he scores a secondary. Okay, we're fine with that. The fight continues between Morty and his shield captain and custodian. He puts everything into Morty. I do get luckier on the saves this time. I think I'll lose 3 wounds, so I'm down to 6. Morty and Typhus then managed to actually finish off the shield guard this time, which is nice. But he's brought Trajan over now to basically get into all my PBCs at the back. At this point, we're kind of okay with this. So we're going to lose the Predator. The Predator's getting charged first. Oh, the Predator did die actually, this game. Sad. Yeah, so the Predator gets charged. We're okay with that. The 3 Plague Scrolls are right back in the corner, hiding away. And they're going to get charged next turn. They're all going to get locked up. And it's basically, that's game over for the Plague Scrolls. But all we have to do at this point with the Plague Crawlers is kill the Terminators that are alive. Because once that's done, all he's got is a 10-man Trajan block. And the rest of the board, we have Cultists on the left. Lord of Virulence is somewhere in the middle. Mortarian's running away into the back right. We've got Nurglings behind his big L. Poxwalker's on his home. And my home objective is still sticky because Death Guard rules. So as long as then we just play for mission after this. Yeah, the Poxwalkers were on strategic reserves for Alex in the chat. So the idea at this point was we're not even going to try and engage the Trajan brick. We've killed one, so all we need to do. The brick can only be in one place at a time. We're just going to run at this point. We fire all the Maulers with the extra AP. We managed to hit the Terminators. We dropped them down a bit. The Lord of Virulence managed to get a spray on them as well. Managed to drop like 1 wound off him. But he managed to pick them up, which is nice. So all these Terminators are dead. Trajan brick's alive. Everyone else runs away. Poxwalkers start doing the mission, the burn in the objective, on his home objective, because that's worth 15. And it's pretty much a game from there. So for the rest of the 2 turns, he just charges a Plague Burst Crawl and blows it up instantly. I'm just running away. In the last turn, he manages to get a charge onto Mortarion with Trajan and kills him. But at that point, it was wrapped up at that point. I was so far ahead on primary and secondary. So yeah, it was a decent game. I think if there's 3 10-man shield bricks, I can't deal with that. 2 you can sort of deal with, but if they come in together, we'll see. Thankfully, one of them went to the middle and wanted to capture that, the other one came straight to me. So we managed to buy that, like, almost that one turn of grace was enough for us to be able to deal with one and move on. So yeah, that was game 1 versus Custodes. Not the most fun matchup. Lovely guy. I just hate playing against Custodes, and boy is it about to get worse.
About to say, yeah, your next one's your next one. I mean, you pulled out the bag, didn't you? Because like I say, I know the lad you played against. But I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you
No,
let
you
break
may
into this.
explain, because I didn't even know who this fella was. That sounds mean. Not like that way, but I didn't
Well,
actually know.
You basically played the Custodes equivalent of you, didn't you? So the guy you played, a guy who actually has links to some loose links to our team, because like I say, Aidan plays on Manchester Warhive and I play on Team Stonehammer. So we're two Manchester teams. We kind of have a friendly rivalry, but me and Aidan have got a shared love of Death Guard, so we can overcome it like Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers. But there's a Preston team as well, and one of our guys moved to Preston. So sometimes when we do team events, the Preston team kind of like sub in with us, and we kind of like we go to their events as well. And one of their guys from Preston, a guy called Michael Armour. If anyone plays Custodes as well or follows all factions top players, you might recognise his name, because Michael Armour is consistently the #1 UK player with Custodes. I think he's somewhere in the top 3 in the world with Custodes as well. His regular sparring partner is Mike Porter. So obviously, that tells you instantly the calibre of level that he plays at. So this Custodes player is not just, Joe Bloggs who's gone to his hobby store and has picked up, some Custodes boxes. This is a good player with a good army who, who thinks about the game in the same way that Aidan would, and sort of, 3D chess rather than just sort of like, one step at a time. So yeah, so it's this was a tough one when me and Aidan were talking in the lunch, and Aidan was talking about the list. I didn't think to ask who the player was. I just assumed, because there's so many Custodes players, it was going to be Joe Bloggs Custodes. But this is like this guy's a good Custodes player. Basically, is what I'm trying to lead into. Like I say, anyone who wants to go and look at the ITC from previous seasons will recognise the name Mike Armour and Custodes, and this is the guy basically.
So yeah, my luck didn't get much better, did it? So
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I do know some stories, but I won't steal your thunder. So I'll let you roll this one out.
So yeah, into Custodes again. Again, we're like, okay, we just faced them, but I kind of wish I got somewhat different at this point. But we'll play it. It's a bit rough to get 2 of like the top performing armies. I was hoping to get like Sisters of Battle or Dark Angels or anything like that. No, Custodes again. Didn't know about at the time who the fellow was specifically until Will told me. I'm glad he told me after the game and not before, so I wasn't shitting my pants during it. But basically, he played a very different style of Custodes. He went for an MSU Custodes army. So we have 5 units of 4 Custodians with spears, 2 units of 6 Wardens. So these are the ones that have the once per game. For a phase, they get feel no pain, which is very hard to deal with. 2 Assassins, and then 2 units of Space Cops. So no Cladius this time, so our little Predator didn't have to go into reserves. We did the same trick with Typhus going with a squad of Death Shroud, because again, even though there is some policemen here, we're probably just going to mortar the policeman off to sort of deny him like just easier secondaries. That's what I thought. It didn't actually work that way. 2 Assassins obviously worrying. We do have Typhus to snipe them out with, which did happen. We managed to pick up the Calidus Assassin, thank God, before she used Vect as well. So I never got Vected, which was really nice.
Just to pause you there for a second, Ian, just because obviously I know we've talked about this in a previous episode, but just to explain to people why Typhus can snipe out characters, because obviously that's something that people might be sort of curious about.
Yeah, so obviously lone operator is a rule in the game at the moment, which is basically you can't be shot outside of 12 inches. There is a ability on Typhus' data sheet that basically is you pick an enemy unit of an 18, and on a 2-up they take D6 mortal wounds, on a 6 they take D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Now this happens in the shooting phase, however it is not a shooting attack. So you can bypass the lone operator rule, so even if you are at 18 inches and not within the 12, you can still target them with this ability and deal the mortal wounds to them. A lot of these characters tend to have 4 wounds, and you can, a good decent roll, or if you roll the 6, you can minimum doing 4. So Typhus is a really nice way to get around these lone op characters that sometimes can stand out in the open, like Reductor Saboteurs, Death Jesters. These people that think they're safe, and then Typhus shows up and basically 360s them. So it's it's a nice tool to have, and another good use of Typhus. Again, why we keeping a list, because he gives us that tool that nothing else in the book does, or just a way to deal with lone op characters, which is really nice. So this mission, we're playing on this one. So quarter deployments, take and hold, so it's basically just hold and hold more. Hidden supplies, which I think is the one that made an extra 2 objectives. So this one came out further to the corner and one went here. So there's actually 6 objectives on this one, which for MSU Custodes is actually very good for him.
It's kind of a weird mission, that one, isn't it? Because on that 5 deployment one, it's always 6, and they're kind of forced to be in the same place as well. Like I found that quite weird, that one, where they don't. I don't know. It's obviously like intended, but when they're drawing the maps out, I don't know why he doesn't just draw 6 objectives on it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of wondered why Zach didn't think that the UKTC TO didn't think to do that. But anyway, that's just a by the by point.
Yeah. So we did the same thing again. Poxwalkers went into reserves. Nurglings were in deep strike. Typhus with the Death Shroud, like I said. Predator was on the board this time because again there's no long range anti-tank in his army, so the Predator just basically deployed on the board edge and was just driving up and down to try and get any angles it could get and just shoot some blast cannons into some Custodes. Now the issue with this matchup is because he's playing MSU, there's a lot more individual units, so it's a lot harder to just go all in on one, because obviously if they've got a 10 man you go all in it, and if it works you've killed like 600 points. Doesn't really work so much, especially with Wardens who have a 4-up feel no pain, so that's a bit more of an issue. 4-up feel no pain is really going to screw you up if you're going to try and do all your damage in one turn, so we have to play it a bit different. Now I won't lie, this one was definitely a swingy match, very swingy. It wasn't going horrific, but it wasn't going great. We managed to pick up some early kills on the shield guard unit. He moved from his quarter into my top small ruin onto the objective. I managed to get cultists to move and advance onto the objective and pull off a boil blight again. So we managed to pick up 4 shield guard off a boil blighted triple plague burst crawler barrage. So that was a nice first turn pickup. This basically sort of kept going back and forth. We had the sorcerer come in with his once per game 3 damage spell, which picked up 4-man unit. Again, combined with Boil Blight stuff. Plague Burst Crawlers basically just trying to pick up as many units as they could with the Ignores cover effect. So the Spear Guard weren't really too bad of an issue. They were obviously very scary and very dangerous, but he had to keep one on his bottom objective, so that kind of neutered one of the units, because if he put the cops on it, I'll just blast the cops off with mortars. He knew that. He was instead just using the cops to screen out, so I couldn't get secondaries easily, which is the right play. So no backline Nurglings and no backline Poxwalkers this time. The main thing that sort of switched this game is it's hard to talk through this game because it's mostly sort of the same. It's the same army you face. It's sort of the same basic principles.
Yeah, you just didn't have the clearness, did you? So you could be a bit more free.
Yeah,
with
some of the vehicles didn't have to like hide behind the L. I had them a bit more forward, so they could get in range to spray stuff. He had some wardens come into the middle. We had a big turn. We decided to go for the big turn where we're going to put everything into it. Now the good thing about Morty, the Death, so we did the same again, rapid ingress into the Death Typhus and the Death Shroud and whatnot. The one good thing we have going in this matchup is the wardens feel no pain only lasts for a phase, not a turn. So when I have quite a lot of shooting and I tell him about it, he pops the feel no pain in the shooting and not the melee. Obviously he's banking on his fights first. He doesn't fail the PBC tests. Again, I'm not getting lucky on these battle shock tests, I won't lie. But I managed to drop a fair few down. I think I killed 1 and a bit through the feel no pain. Now Morty's gone in for this because I'm having to commit. We commit to it. Morty does get to swing. Morty and the Death Shroud, they do take massive losses. I think all the Death Shroud die again. But we managed to kill it down to 1 Warden and the Shield Captain in melee. So he got Morty actually managed to pick some up this time, which was nice.
Nice.
But the problem was he still had another 6-man Warden brick behind that brick. So at this point, I was hoping to do more damage. I was really hoping to not take as much damage as I did on Morty. Morty went down to 9. That's from split attacks as well, because obviously they put quite a lot into the Death Shroud. So Mortarion ended up taking 9 damage, and that's with -1 on as well. my Death Shroud were all dead. So at this point, we have just Morty in the middle, and he has his other 6-man Brock. So we have a 9-wound Mortarion on the middle, and a 6-man Warden break with another character that can charge him in his turn. So this at this point is looking obviously not great, is it?
Yeah,
Like-
that's the kind of thing that Morty doesn't want to see.
Yeah, but now don't get me wrong, we've killed a lot of the MSU shield guard. I think he's down to one unit holding his home, and he has one sort of in my deployment, which we were kind of trickling down. I think he's down to 2 guys on it, locked in combat with some spawn and the other unit of Death Shroud. So there's not masses amount left, but the problem is what is left is enough to basically walk through my entire army if Morty dies. So not great, because obviously once Morty dies, -1 damage then starts working again, so my PBCs become really inefficient, so they're not going to pick him up. So at this point I'm like, we tried our best, we're going to lose to this guy. Good effort though, it'd be a good score, high scoring loss, so we're alright with that. Because obviously we're still playing secondaries with Rave Nurglings and stuff all around this. We did pick up some Space Cops at one point, so we could start getting Nurglings in with Deep Strike to score secondaries. His Wardens come in. I'm there obviously saying this is the end for old Mortimer. F's in the chat for Morty. They charge in, they pop sustained hits and lethal hits. They pay the CP for +1 to wound on Morty as well. And they swing at Mortarion, and he fails a fair whack of the invulns. He ends up taking something like 22 damage, and he lives on 2 wounds. My spiked feel no pain's pretty good apparently. So he lives on 2 wounds, but again, that's still not great. We just die next turn instead, don't we? So I'm thinking, right, let's try and make Morty hit as hard as he can before he goes out, because Morty does ignore his own degradation because of his rule. Don't know why it's on his sheet. So Morty pays a command point for sustained hits 1. Might as well, you try, don't you, at this point, to just do what you can. Morty swings into them, he hits with them all and gets 1 exploding, so we're on 6 hits. He managed to do 6 wounds. My opponent rolls the dice, and his face turns to horror. He failed every single one.
Yeah.
Every single one, all 6. And the worst bit is, the feel no pain that hasn't been used on this unit has to be declared at the start of the phase, and because he was obviously, and rightfully so, he was convinced he'd just kill Mortarion. He didn't pop it, he didn't feel the need to pop it. So he had to just pick up his entire unit of Wardens. Just the entire unit.
Yeah. It was sad, wasn't it? Yeah, I spoke to Mike afterwards, and he was saying that like when the dice do that, there's not much you can do.
No.
Sometimes the dice just undermine you. And that
truly was
can go both ways.
Now, don't get me wrong, Morty had bounced all day at this point, so this was a nice bit of retribution for Morty's rolls, because he'd been awful up to this point. But to pick up that entire unit and then have Morty live on 2 wounds, this is in his turn, bear in mind, comes back to my turn. Morty's now controls the point he's on, so it becomes infected. I pay the command point to heal him for free, and at this point, he's got a shield captain left, and another shield captain on like 2 wounds that's running away from before. Yeah, and the other shield guard are right in the corner because they were holding that objective. Nothing can deal with Morty now, so we just managed to basically clean up the middle. We just talked it through at that point because there's literally nothing he could do. Like that one turn was a 30-point swing. That's how big it was. It was insane. So Morty actually came through that time for us. So praise be to Morty.
See, I want to add something here to your credit as well, Aidan, which is something I want to say now. Because you could look at this with the glasses half empty, sort of like, well, Aidan got really lucky that those dice shouldn't have happened. But the reality is, though, good players play themselves in positions where, especially when they're the underdog, where when they know they can exploit one thing in the game that goes in their favour and that puts them on top. Like you played, from what Mike Armour told me afterwards, a perfect game up until that point. Because I know the other side of this story, being friends with Mike Armour, and he said he was cruising for a win. He said he was cruising for an easy victory. He said it wasn't going to be huge, but it was going to. He felt it was in his point,
Yep.
in the bag at that point. The weird dice happened, but then he said, and this is what his words. He said you played a perfect game, and he said you were in the perfect position. So when that happened, you were there to capitalise. Because that could have easily happened, say, against me. that could happen against me, and I might still have lost the game because I might not have like had everything else on my other ducks lined up for that swinging the dice or an opponent's mistake to sort of capitalise.
Yeah.
So credit, and this is where the high level play comes in. Like it might look like it's stacked against you, and this is something that like I say, I do better than average with Death Guard, but I don't do Aiden's level. But I speak to all the good players. Every now and again I have a little run and I go, put my head up too high and get slapped down by one of the top guys. And I always like to speak to them after the game. And what Mike Armour said about you is one of the things that they always say to me. And when I talk to them, they always say that you have to sort of like play perfect game, because even if it looks like you're losing, dice can happen. Your opponent might make a mistake. So you have to be there to capitalise, and the fact that you're in that position to do that is credit to you and shows why you got the 4-1 and the 5-0s. Because people could say, oh, you got lucky with dice, but there's more to the game than that. Dice are just a part of it.
Oh, thank you.
So I think that's really important to remember for the people who are listening, because like you say, like Mike Armour being a good player, he was, he credit to you, he was singing your praises afterwards as well, and he said as much as
you,
the dice, the dice shat the bed for him, he also said that wasn't enough for you to win the game. You had to be doing more than that to sort of like to get one over on him. So and you were in a position where you were able to do that, and I think that's why it's worth sort of talking to you and hearing, and it's a valid point to make. Becoming a good player isn't just about sort of like bringing the powerful army and being on top from the very beginning. It's like any sport, like a football team or an American football team, whatever, basketball team, you could be 3-0 down at half time or 30 points down if it's basketball and still come back and win the game. And that winning mentality, and and that's what you were able to display.
Oh, thank you. Like, he was a really good sport, like I'd have been distraught if that brawl happened to me, but he was, I think it's the thing when people have played like as much as like Mike and stuff, like you dice moments, they happen, and it is what it is. So I did feel a bit sorry. I did feel like I did steal that win a bit, but I'm happy to hear that he wasn't upset about it. That's nice.
No, not at all. He was completely opposite. He was very much like, he was frustrated at it, but he was also like, he knew he credited you as a player and said that although the dice were shit, it also took good play for those shit dice to actually losing the game the way they did.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
So yeah, credit to you.
Just for those who want to know, the Poxwalkers in this one, again, we did the same thing. Once the middle had started to commit on his turn 3, because he went first this game, I brought in the Poxwalkers just above his big L here. Managed again to get a 9-inch charge again. These Poxwalkers like making these 9 inches. But again, they were in a position where they either make the 9-inch charge or the next turn, because he's having to screen out the back. He's not stood on the front of his objective, so I could have easily got onto the objective with like a 2-inch advance. And he's only OC1 on these cops. Poxwalkers, I've got 20 of them versus his 5. They'd have took that objective, and I managed to draw capture enemy outpost in the last turn as well. So them just hanging around on his home got me an extra 8 points as well. So again, Poxwalkers, again, if your opponent pulls away too much with their anti-infantry from an area, exploit it, bring them in, become a pain in the ass, walk onto an objective. Doesn't matter if they respond and wipe you out the next turn, just deny them, score something. That's what Poxwalkers are good for. I wouldn't ever just walk Poxwalkers up the board, they just die. It just doesn't work. So yeah, another game versus Custodes. Again, I'm going to keep the Custodes explanation short because it's sort of the same thing. It's all about just going at once when you can with wardens.
About to say, yeah. Maybe we should start just reading the Custodes index. We could become a Custodes channel.
Yeah, I know. So I'm thinking, okay, 2 Custodes now. We've had 2 of the tough matchups. Hopefully, round 3, maybe this is the last chance we're going to get a sort of nicer army, and then we get Eldar. So now, caveat.
Yeah.
We're okay. This bit at the top when I saw Eldari, shit my pants. Battle host shit my pants. But then as I went down, it's Harlequins. So this guy brought Harlequins, one because he said it's what he owned and what he has, and he still loves Harlequins, but also he was playing into the popularity of Knights, so he has a lot of Haywire, which is 4+ dev wounds against the vehicles, and his previous games he had Knights and he basically destroyed them real quickly. Unfortunately, his entire army, as he was explaining it to me, is basically -1 to hit and -1 to wound. He spent a good 10 minutes explaining this to me. To unfortunately get it all to be told none of it matters in the first 30 seconds, as I explained more time into him. So, we were basically in a position where he had an entire army of just 4+ invulns, which were going to get mortared off the board if I got first turn, because the only anti-vehicle he had, which is very strong anti-vehicle, I say only, but it's a lot, but it's 3 units of bikes. Where they go? There you go, 3 units of these Skyweavers here, a 4, a 4, and a 2. These bikes are only 3 wounds each. So, the 3 or 4, it doesn't matter, it's 2 Plague's call hits to kill a guy.
Yeah, because obviously you talked about them having like a lot of anti-tank, but the anti-tank they've got quite short range, isn't it? So, they're kind of relying on speed and getting close to things. So like you say, so did you feel with the bikes and things you were able to sort of like close them down? Is that what you...
Yeah, so basically with the speed and the bikes that he had, it was obviously a bit scary, but we had the big L to hide behind. So we put all our vehicles behind there. And he basically knew. We deployed. Again, we did some strat reserves. Now at this point, we're going to swap back to our Typhus with the Poxwalkers. Because we can pick up Harlequin units. The thing is, when you've got like Harlequin troops, which are... How many points is 5 Harlequin troops?
No idea.
Okay,
I can look up the points index and tell you.
It's only 75, but Typhus has the ability to pick up the entire unit in one spell, which is quite nice.
There you go.
Want me to move this? There we go. Should be alright now. And obviously then he can resurrect. And Harlequins is also just they're nowhere near as good as melee as they used to be. So actually churning through 20 feel no pain models is actually really tough for them. So again, it just made sense for him to go with them. We did strat reserve him because again, we never want to walk them up the board because the Haywire, even though it might not have a chance to shoot the vehicles, it is a blast weapon. We don't want to eat blast weapons on 20-man units. It's just not good. And hiding that many guys is also really hard. So he deployed very aggressively on the line because basically he had to, as Will said. If he didn't get on me straight away, he knew what was going to happen. And he lost the turn for first turn. And you can imagine what happened next, Will.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like one of them games where it's just kind of the underdog has to go first to have any chance. If they do go first, you've still got a chance into it, but
yeah,
it's kind of like it snowballs, and once it starts snowballing, sometimes it's a hole you can't dig yourself out of.
Yeah, so the mortars pick up like 6 of the 10 bikes turn 1, so he's got 1 unit of 4 left. He does come round and manage to get all 4 shooting into a Plague Burst Crawler, but a cheeky Cloud of Flies 1 CP for the -1 to hit makes it only take 6 mortal wounds, so it's still alive.
Nice.
Yeah, next turn we then, because I went first, so turn 2, Sorcerer and Terminator Armor comes in. He uses once per game spell to just pick the bikes up, basically, plus the sprayers off them. The mortars then basically just pick a Starweaver return and pop it, so the troops are now out on the field. But the way I did it is, so all these Starweavers were sort of together. He went rushing for me because he had to get on top of me. They all popped in a way that they were all close to each other. So all I did before I popped them is I put Death Shroud Terminators 9 inches away from them. Now he had to get out close to the Death Shroud because on the other side of his other Starweavers. So we popped them in an order that at least 2 units had to get out within 12 of the Death Shroud. So that meant in his turn, he either stood still or died, because if he moved with any of them, I'll just overwatch them, and 5 1 wound models versus anti-infantry 4 plus rerolling everything flamers, it's not living. So they were effectively dead because they couldn't do anything. And if he moved, I'd just kill him in his turn and do me a favour. There's honestly not too much to talk about. This was over like turn 2. Like all these transports were gone.
Yeah, when I saw you come down the hall really quickly, because I didn't know what you'd been paired into. Like I thought, oh no, you've had Eldar Wraith Knight or something. You're gonna come down and tell me that like how bad it went. Yeah. And then when you came over and were like you'd smashed him in 2 turns, I was like, wow.
Yeah, the skull was brutal, man. Like what was it? It was I think it was like 100 to. Can I see the actual games by game? Apparently not. Article pairings, won't I? Yeah, 1 second. It was round 3. He didn't have a fun game. Yeah, 100 to 23. Can we load it proper?
Ooh, I mean that's a stinger.
That's round
it's definitely
4,
a stinger.
You load right? Because I'll say Mark Pilkington was round 3. Okay, it seems to be like a
Yeah,
list behind for some reason.
Genestealer Cult was your round 4, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Because
Genestealer
that
Cult
was
was
the one I
around
was
4. There you
messing
go.
you about.
Yeah, 123 got 13 points and basically got tabled. Yeah, it was one of those. The guy took an off meta list to deal with knights because he was obviously very popular, and he did do that. He smashed 2 of them, and then basically, when you take these heavy skew lists, you run the risk of running into the rock to your scissors. So you've been snipping all the
Yeah.
paper lists, and then suddenly you run into
Well,
a
this is
rock
it.
which just smashes you to pieces. That's what happened. He
Well,
didn't have
this.
much chance. It wasn't the most fun game for him. I did apologise. We tried to have a laugh, and he was a good sport about it, but you could just tell obviously he knew. Yeah.
Well, that's it, and when you take skews, you have to run into that. I mean, it's like on a previous episode when I talked about going 4-1 at Manchester GT with Death Guard when they were also naff, but I took that switch off combat army skew and managed to play, 4 combat armies, and but when I went into a gunline, I had absolutely nothing, and it was a sad day for me. So obviously, on the other side of that, when you're there, when you come up against that skew, that the skew's going the opposite way, or you've got the tool to deal with it, it ends quickly, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that Death Guard are good in this edition is we are good at killing light infantry in mass. Like, that's the one thing our book is. It might even be the best index for it. Like, and not that I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but we have more
Light
tools than any
infantry and
other
light
army.
vehicles, like PBCs eat like 4 up save, toughness 7, toughness 8, toughness 7 vehicles just get, cause that's what it is, it's all 4 up invulnerable, toughness 7, 6 wounds, 3 wounds go through, it's dead. They just pick it up so easily. And obviously you're ignoring all of, like, the reason those things normally stay alive is because they're like -1 to hit, -1 to wound, and these just like, nope, Mortarian's just going to ignore that. So the Solitaire did have a fight with Mortarion though, that was quite fun. He ran in, he blitzed, he did nothing, and then he died.
So do you not even have the Incarn then? Because I know a lot of Harlequins
no.
players still take the Incarn and stuff. So it was pure Harlequins.
There was a unit of 10 Rangers and the named Ranger character Illic Nightspear. This one's a fun one. He deployed them on the center objective with Infiltrate. Where is it? So right in the center, round 3. Right center. I had cultists in this building here because I was going first. I scouted them out. I scouted them out like down this way. Then I moved them forward so they could see. I shot them with the cultists, and I think I killed 6 of them. I then made a charge, killed the rest of the Rangers with the charge. Did 1 wound to Illic Nightspear, but managed to get a surround on him off. My opponent's turn, he wanted to fall back with Illic Nightspear. I obviously told him that if you do that, you got to roll a dice for desperate breakout, and a 1 or a 2 Illic will die. He was like, I've got to at this point, and he did roll a 1. So the 10 cultists traded up 55 points for like 200 and something. So cultists, like, honestly, against like toughness 3 infantry, especially with contagion range and whatnot, Flamer plus frag grenade launcher plus auto guns into toughness 2 models because they're near you. You'll pick stuff up. You will pick stuff up. So
yeah, I always forget that cultists get the 3 weapons now. I always sort of just look at them as like bodies, but the flamer and the sort of the heavy stubber and the grenade launcher actually makes them a bit better than what you think.
The sorcerer that shot the bikes left 1 alive, and then a cultist with the crack grenade picked it up because it's D3 damage, and he rolled a 3 and was like, "I'll do." So that was quite cool. But yeah, there's not too much to talk about this one. Turns out scoring secondaries is easy when your opponent's not on the board. So yeah, we managed to 100 that one. But he was a really good sport about it, and I did buy him a drink to make up because I did feel a bit bad. So yeah, but that was the end of day 1, 3-0. Did dodge the hard Eldari matchup, thank God. But we've dealt with 2 Custodes, which is not an easy matchup. So we're chilling. We're at Pizza Express, me and my friend having a good time. Just waiting for the parents to come up. Parents come up, and what do we get? Genestealer Cults. Now I can't say I'm surprised in a round 4 to get a meta army, but it would, again, at this point, can I please catch a break? I would like something different, please. But this game against Mark, if it loads, come on, load, was one of the best games I think I've ever played. So, oh no, I want to view his list, not that. View list, there we go. So Genestealer Cult, let's have a look. all these Clamavus, so 12 inches of no deep strike, not fun. Nexus, so free stratagem, Nexus free stratagem. Primus, full rerolls to hit and redeploys, again another one. Reductus Saboteur, so if I move anywhere near him, he's going to do, on a 2-up, do d6 mortal wounds to me, or d3 plus 3 I think it is. This one here has a Vect, so this is an ability that basically after I spend a stratagem, for the rest of the game it costs 1 CP more. And then all of this, so every single unit you're about to see, demolition charges. Now UKTC has ruled that they get these one-use weapons back when they respawn. So he has 1.
It's the stupidest thing, and that's not even UKTC. That's actually Games Workshop's FAQ. Like, UKTC makes some odd rulings like the Trajan one, but like that. I mean, that one from GW is just like, what? It's like, I love the way they fixed blips and then like, and then made well, they didn't really fix blips, but they made them better, and then they made the mines 10 times worse. It's like, GW, what are you doing?
I know, it's grim. So we have, so all these battle line units, once I kill them, will automatically respawn next turn with blips. He has no non-battle line par these 3 ridge runners at the bottom, so all of these have a 100% chance to come back to life if I kill them. As you can imagine, that is frustrating, especially when they come back with demo charges. So every one of these hybrid squads, of which there is 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 5-man, have 4d6 plus 12, strength 12, AP 2, 2 damage shots. Every single one of them, and they can drop within 3 inches of you, throw them at you, and basically pick up anything they want. And that's alongside the 5 hand flamers they also have for picking up any chaff. So they're horrendous. And then he has these acolyte hybrid, neophyte hybrids. So these are 20-man units with 4 grenade launchers and 4 seismic cannons. The seismic cannons are 4 shots with rapid fire 2, so an extra 2, so 6 shots. Strength 6, AP 1, D3 damage. The leader, they're going to be led by primaries, which give them full rerolls to hit. Bear in mind, whenever they come in from whenever they teleport in or arrive from cult ambush, they get ignore cover and exploding 6s. It's fucking insane. They also have stratagem for +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and +1 AP. The +1 to wound separate to the +1 to hit and +1 AP, but still, it's the damage these things put out is absurd. And then if you kill them, they respawn. And the way it works, and the reason I'll explain now is because it's important. When you kill a unit, the Genestealer Cult player will place a blip anywhere they want. Now, you have until your next movement phase to get within 9 inches of that blip, otherwise a unit will respawn from that blip. As you can imagine, Death Guard are not fast, so that's impossible. He will put them in the back of his own deployment, and then they have another stratagem which they can do for free because of the Nexus, which is pick a unit at the end of your opponent's turn, so they respawn in my movement phase, and now at the end of my turn he picks the unit, and for 1 command point it goes back into deep strike, ready to come in on his turn to do the same suicide bombs again. And this will keep happening over and over and over, and you can kill them and they'll come back, and you'll kill them and they'll come back. It is a nightmare to deal with. It's horrendous.
I think the word we're looking for it is broken.
Games
Workshop is a broken mechanic.
There is no risk. There is literally no risk. So I was pretty much coming into this with a proper negative attitude. I was like, this is over, and it kind of was sort of already decided. But we've managed to put up a better game than I thought. So we did put Typhus in reserves with the Poxwalkers. We did put the Nurglings in reserves with the Deep Strike. The reason we're doing this is because I need to keep my screens up. So the Cultist would act as a first screen, and then the second screen I could then Deep Strike in with Nurglings to keep my PBCs alive, and after that, so, basically out of screens.
Just in regards to the screen, because obviously with the Nurglings, I've an inkling as to why he did it this way, but I think it might be interesting to sort of talk through to the people listening, because obviously the Nurglings can push out a screen, anywhere on the board, so you could maybe argue that it would make sense to start them on the board. That way you can sort of push out, and then they can't sort of actually push you back by pushing you 9 inches back. Were you worried if you start them on the board and push forward, you'd actually be giving them a speed bump because then they could move close to you and then get in charge range and then use an Urglings to steal movement and get you actually closer to you? Was that
Nope.
the thinking there, or?
I couldn't put them on the board because his Clamavus has an upgrade that gives it Infiltrator and the unit he's with Infiltrator, so he strung a 20 man across my entire board, which meant I couldn't infiltrate goddamn anything. And then in his turn, he has the 6-3 redeploys because he's got 2 Primuses. He just pulls them back to safety.
Yeah, definitely not busted. Genestealer Cult are fine. Totally fine.
Put him in deep strike because we're not getting that happen to us. So we put him in deep strike. Also saved him the bother of having to string him out. Now the fellas against Mark, it was Mark, isn't it? I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. I think it is.
It is Mark. I actually opened him up as you were talking because I was Mark Pilkington because I was curious to see where he finished after playing you, and he went undefeated until the last round. Because people who know Genestealer Cult, they're a high skill level army, so you can also play some people with Genestealer Cult and absolutely trash them because they don't use the tricks properly. But when you play a good player with Genestealer Cult, as Aiden's talking through now, it is a totally different game. And as I'm sure you hear on any at the UK, any podcast talking about the UKTC is talking about how Genestealer Cult the 20-0 list in every team's like team of 8.
Certain matches,
so, you know,
just all wins. It's so gross.
Yeah, and the Mark finished 13th and only took his loss in the last round. So I've no idea who he took his loss to. I'm just trying to see if I can find that. But the fact he took it in the last round,
it was to Eldar.
I presume he's lost to one of the top 4 guys. You know, Josh Roberts or one of those guys.
I think it was Josh Roberts actually.
Yeah, so there you go. So that tells the calibre of player he is. The fact he went the distance and then lost to the Team England captain. You know, like
he was very
obviously.
Good.
Mark Pilkington knows what he's doing. So the fact that you lost to the Genestealer Cult with the most underpowered arm in the game being Death Guard, absolutely no shame in it whatsoever.
No, exactly. I was happy, and the fellow was awesome. Like both did plenty of like take backs on certain things because we realised stuff later on because there's so many interactions going on in the game, especially when it comes to Battle Shock, which was huge this game. And it's something I used against him because I thought this was going to be like a 100 to 30 blowout. I thought this was basically going to ruin my event, and turn 2 it looked like it was going to be that. He came in, he did the Genestealer Cult thing, he killed every single one of my screens, he killed the Predator, and then I killed him. I killed what was near me with the Flamers and the PVCs, and he was like, right, we're just going to do it again, but this time it's going to be your Plague Burst Crawlers all dying and Mortarion. So I went aggressive with Mortarion. I thought if he's going to die, he might as well get some damage done. Mortarion is actually more of a problem for them than they think. Mortarion is actually quite hard to kill, weirdly, which is nice. But the thing that changed everything, and the thing that made this actually be a game, is after we killed his hybrids and they went back into blips. The blips he then put in his back corners and he respawned them. And then he said, so what I'll do is I'll just tell you now at the end of the turn I'm going to use the free stratagem and they're both going to go back into deep. They're all going to go back into deep strike and 3 units of them are going to go back into deep strike and we'll do it again next turn, yeah. So I'm like, I need to stop that. I can't get close enough to deal with the blips. There's no way I can do it. There has to be another way. So I shot a Plague Burst spotter at one. And I told him to take a Battle Shock test, and he failed it. I shot at one at the other one, Battle Shock test, and he failed it. He can't use a stratagem on a Battle Shocked unit, and Battle Shock doesn't go away until his turn, which meant that
you also can't use a 1 CP strat because you can only use that in your commander phase. Just to sort of add into what I can see what you're setting up there.
Yeah. You can't all pass it if it's not in the command phase. The Battle Shock. So these units were now stuck in the corner, unable to go back into reserves. So they were effectively pretty much dead. Well, not dead, but they're out of the fight for 2 turns. Now we still had 2 coming in, plus a load of 20-man blobs. But it's better than nothing. So he brings them in. One 10-man Acolyte blob gets overwatched by a Plague Burst Crawler, rolls a 12 on the shots, and basically just anti-infantry 2 plus blows them away. So we could pick up a 10-man for free on Overwatch, which was nice. But he did drop 2 in on the same spot because he really wanted to blow the PVC. And the second one did pick up the PVC, sadly. However, his 20-man unit of Neophytes came in to shoot Morty with the seismic cannons and didn't do as well as he thought they'd do, even with sustained hits, needing 5s to wound with Morty. Morty can, if Morty spike saves, he's tough to kill. And Morty did manage to spike quite a lot of saves. which was nice. I won't say anything ridiculously over average, just slightly. But he lived. My Death Shroud were basically being used as Overwatch screens, if that makes sense. So they'd come in front of the PBC with entropies and whatnot to basically to act as his flamers, if that makes sense. So if he dropped in within 6 to demolition charge the PBC, the Death Shroud could Overwatch for it, and the Death Shroud will kill a unit because they have 5d6 flamers. So one important thing. First turn and the first 2 turns, all my mortars went into his Ridge Runners. So his Ridge Runners are his Ignore Line of Sight unit. The reason this is important is because, one, they have mortars that are ignoring line of sight, so it's blast weapon, ignores line of sight. We don't want our cook screens being killed just for free. So we shot these first our Plague Burst Crawlers. We managed to pick up 2 the first turn and the last one on the second turn. So getting rid of these is really nice, because also anything they hit, his entire army is +1 AP and ignores cover off the one with the Survey Auger. So we don't want Morty to be taking an extra AP and then also followed by ignores cover. Because the cover save plus the 2-up armor is what kept Morty alive versus the AP1 seismic cannons. If they were AP2, he definitely would have died. So we focus fired them down first. Again, there's no point just shooting the infantry. If you shoot the infantry, they're just going to resurrect because they're icons. So you either need to kill it fully and make it blip, or something else that we also did is charge the infantry. So once it comes in, charge the infantry with a unit that can't kill them, like a Predator, which I did try, but he failed to charge, sadly, and then died. But Plague Burst Crawlers, charge them instead of flaming them, because while they're in combat, they're very bad in combat versus vehicles, because they're like strength 3. They can't fire guns, they have no way in their army to fall back and shoot, and they also can't go back into reserves if they're in engagement range. So you can just keep chasing the units and bumping into them to basically shut them down. And because you're a vehicle, the Plague Burst Crawler can still shoot its mortar out of combat. So you can shoot that mortar out to another unit elsewhere. So your Plague Burst Crawler can technically be in combat with one unit of Genestealer Cults, shooting its mortar at another one, making them fail battle shock, so that unit's neutered, and the one it's in combat with is neutered. And this is basically what we had to do the entire game to stay alive. While we're doing this, we're just trying to score secondaries as best as possible. Morty got into his deployment zone, was pushing him really hard. Eventually Morty did go down, but because he had to bring in all this stuff in his home to deal with Morty, we managed to sort of retake the middle and our home objectives. So at this point, we're racking up primary back, and we're racking up some secondaries, because he's had to dedicate a lot to deal with Morty. And it was a crazy game, because basically, because of all the nuisance that caused, and the secondaries that we managed to score during that, on turn 5, we scored it up, and it was actually going to be a 91-91 draw.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I don't even know how the fuck I did that, but and even he was in shock. He was playing his mind out as well. Like it was honestly, we had people watching at the table. It was quite fun, and some people were like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but this is nuts. So basically, he said, I don't want this to be a draw. He just feels wrong for it to be a draw. So when he drew his secondary cards, he could score one of them, which would make it a draw, 100%. The second one, he could ditch for a CP. Now, if he ditched it and got a bad one, sorry, he had to score both to make it a draw, but the one that he was scoring was only worth 2. If he ditched it and got a bad one he couldn't score, he would lose the game. If he got a better one, he would win the game. So he took a big risk, but he didn't want it to go to a draw. So he paid the CP and he drew a different one, and he drew one that could score the exact same CP. However, it made him look at something on the board which neither of us noticed, which is he actually could make a 9-inch charge onto the middle objective past the Plague Burst Crawler, and if he makes it with a single model, because Nurglings are in the middle, and this is the thing where, I was talking to you about maybe swapping the Nurglings for a Beast of Nurgle.
Yeah.
Because Nurglings are OC0, a single model will take it off me, which would then cause a 5-point flip up for him and a 5-point down for me. And as you can tell from the final score, it's 96 to 86, because I went down 5 from 91 and he went up 5. So we all know what happened. He managed to make the charge. He walked past the Plague Burst Crawler. He managed to live the Overwatch with it, and then he managed to make the 9-inch charge. And it was a cool moment. Like, it had to come down to something. I'm kind of glad it wasn't a draw. But unfortunately, that is where the loss was. Up to that point, we were neck and neck, 91-91 draw. But yeah, it was a cracking game, honestly.
Ah, well done, man. I mean, like I said, I didn't actually, because obviously I didn't do the second day. I said at the time I wasn't sure I was feeling 10th tournaments, and obviously we
Yeah.
bought the tickets a long time ago. Which I'll caveat, I actually had a really good time. I part of me wished I maybe hadn't made my Sunday plans, although I did have a really good Sunday as well. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe did wish I'd played because it actually was really good. My premonition of what I thought an event would be like in 10th wasn't all just Wraith Knights and Genestealer Cults. And the fact that that kind of fun interaction happened and you had a really close game and playing a really fun opponent, I think that's sort of testament to that as well. So yeah, I mean, like I say, because I wasn't there, I didn't realise that had happened, but that's incredible. That, I mean, that's like I say, if you'd have beat Genestealer Cult with Death Guard, imagine if you'd have been playing on table 1, that would have been
God.
crazy.
Well, he got Josh Roberts' his reward, so he can have
That's
that.
it, yeah, I was going to say. I mean, at that point, though, you could have just shook Josh Roberts' hand, couldn't you? Gone, mate, you just have 100
I think
points.
he'd be a bit confused. He was like, "Why am I facing Death Guard?" He'd be like, "What's going on?" I'd be like, "Hi, Josh. How you doing? Please don't kill me." So yeah, it was honestly, it's one of the best games I've ever played. I think he felt the same. I was just happy to give him a good game because I honestly thought it was going to be a blowout, and it ended up being one of the the closest game that I played all weekend. Yeah, absolutely insane game. If you go against Genestealer Cult, I'll be honest with you, you're probably going to lose it. It's so broken, it's so hard. But the tricks that you can try to use is, like I said, put vehicles in combat with his units so they can't go back to reserves and they can't fall back and shoot or anything. Use your mortars to battle shock units that are trying to come in as blips in his own home deployment. Keep a check on your Overwatch. And when he comes in, remember the demo charges a ballistic skill 5. So make sure you're using your stealth stratagem for -1 to be hit, because being hit on 6s, even though it is exploding 6s, so it's still horrendous and it still really hurts, especially if you've got reroll hits from the Primus, it's better than nothing. And sometimes when stuff's going bad, you've just got to go aggressive. You've just got to start putting pressure on him, trying to take back some board space from them, and that's what we did with Morty. We just started throwing him at him, taking back the middle, and we managed to almost come out of a draw on it. But again, no regrets. I'm happy with that one.
No, like I say, I mean, I didn't realise it'd been as close as what it was. I knew the result from what you said, and I saw on the points it was a high scoring game, but I didn't realise it was high scoring to the point where it had nearly been a win or a draw to Death Guard. So yeah, I mean, like I say,
Yeah,
incredible result.
now the last round is going to be short to talk about because
Should we see if anyone can guess what you had again?
Oh yeah, guess what I had round 5, everyone. Let's have a look. Oh, look at that. Custodes again. So 3 Custodes. So this one I won with 54 points, which is the lowest win probably you've ever seen. Let me explain why. This is mission 5. Mission 5 is shit. I hope it gets changed. Basically, this gap between these objectives is actually massive on the board when you physically see it. The picture doesn't do it justice. And on this mission, the middle objective is removed. So we have an army of Custodes, which has no bikes in his list. Let's pull it up, David. He has no bikes, no tanks. He's all infantry. Versus Death Guard, who are notoriously slow. There is almost a 22-inch gap between the objectives in no man's land with no cover, no nothing. And there is no center objective to play over. So, guess what happened? I stood on this side, he stood on that side, and we literally were so bored, we were pulling each other's secondaries. We were holding each other's cards like a fan in our hands and be like, ooh, which one's it gonna be? And then we'd let our opponent pick our secondaries, and I managed to fuck him over more than he fucked me over. By pure luck.
Oh wow! So you think that one just came down to just look at the cards, or?
There was literally nothing that happened, dude. Mate, this is why I'm saying it's awful mission. It needs changing because no one's gonna cross the open and just die for free, because he can't get from his side to my side in one turn. So if he walks in the open, I just shoot him with everything, and then he has to do another move, and I shoot him with everything again, and then melee him and charge him and kill him. So he's not gonna.
Yeah. So.
I'm not doing it because he'll just kill me, and even if I do get there and make the charge, he'll fight first and kill me. So I'm not doing it. So I sat on my side, he sat on his side. I pulled some cards. I got better cards than him, at the end of his turn 3, he said, "Fuck it, I'm bored," and he ran his entire army at me. And
Fair play.
fair play to the dude, because nothing was happening. We were both bored shitless.
I mean, to be fair, I mean that also could have gone horribly wrong for you. You know, if it sort of if he just made all these 4-up saves, it could have made a massive swing. So it's not as crazy as it is for some armies to deal with Custodes, admittedly.
So I had a unit of 10 shield guard push me, a unit of 5 shield guard with the actual shields, and 3 wardens all coming in at once. The entire first 3 turns had to be Mortar in his Terminator squad, just hoping they failed 2-ups, and they did, so a couple of them died. You know, like we said in the first game, they're the unit that can teleport and score secondaries, so I was going to try and kill them. But there's not too much to talk about. He ran at me, he charged my top objective, which is where he got most of his points from. For 1 turn, he took my objective at the top off me, with 10 shield guard and 6 shield guard to kill. I think it was 2 spawn and 10 cultists.
Dear.
I did the
Good
same
trade there, yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing I've done every game. I rapid ingress in my Typhus, and that's again Typhus with a Death Shroud. We then open up into him with everything. We managed to kill the Spear Guard down to 2 guys. Typhus and Death Shroud and Mortarion are in combat with it all. So Mortarion's in combat with the Shield Guard and the Spear Guard. Typhus and Co just with this 1 Spear and the Shield Captain that were left. That combat happens. Typhus loses 2 Death Shroud, goes down to 1. But then he managed to pick up the rest of the Spear Guard. Morty almost dies because he's does a lot of wounds to me for 1 damage swords actually really start to hurt for some reason. But then the next turn my second unit of Death Shroud joins in the fight with Morty, and basically Mortarion doesn't take as much damage the next turn. He just gets much better saves, and the other guy got much more average rolls. We managed to pick them up, and that was basically it. Like, that was the only thing that happened all game. But because I had units like Nurglings and like Poxwalkers, I could just get in those cheeky. He can't screen out his back because he's Custodes. So we got like 1 behind enemy lines, and I just brought the Poxwalkers along his entire back line in like a 1 single file line. And that was like a 4 points. And as you can see from the final score, I think the difference was 5 points. That's all it was difference between us. But it's not just us. A lot of people had a bad experience in that last mission, so I'm hoping something gets done about it. There's not too much to talk about. It was the same thing as the first mission for killing the 10-man brick, and then we just got better cards because the mission was crap.
It's the kind of mission where it's going to like the armies that are quick, and like Genestealer Cult probably love that mission because they can just keep throwing bodies in the middle of the die.
Well. Like,
they
there
don't
was
care.
armies that were like, we were looking at other tables like, what's going on over there? And they actually have an interaction. But then we look at another army that's got like Necrons and Custodes, and it's just the same again. We've all just stood there like, we're not going across the open land.
Yeah, Imperial Knights as well might like it if they've got the tower in and can just see the other side of the board and say, I'll just keep shooting you. Just keep shooting you until you come out, you know, I'll pin you where you are kind of thing. Like, it's those kind of... I mean, obviously, you know, we're still in the sort of beta of 10th, really, if we're on about... I mean, there hasn't even been a single codex yet, and Zach, who's the UK TCTO, even has on the documents and missions that they are still like beta, really, so I think he's looking for feedback from players and things like that. So hopefully that'll get fixed, because I'm also not sure I fully like the way some of the train setups are on some of those ones. Like, there's a little it's way more denser than it looks like. There's massive firing lanes down the left and right.
The outskirts feel a bit barren sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why he's done it, you know, fair play. You know, the thinking's there. He's trying to sort of like shut down towering a little bit and make it so people can run from ledge to ledge. Because obviously if you're under the ledge that, you know, stands up, towering can't get an angle on you. But I mean, that last mission does sound a bit... sounds like a dreary game, but especially at the last of 5.
Because it's such a low win, because I think ones before that I had, even my loss was like 86, and then before that I had so at 86 I had 100, I had 100, before that was like, is it 90, yeah, and then before that I think it was a 98, 95, but then because that win was a 54, I actually dropped quite a lot of places, but there was honestly nothing I could do, like what was I supposed to do? Walk at him? I just die. Like,
I mean, that
it
one,
was
it's just, I think that one, like we've overachieved, haven't you? I mean, I think we kind of agreed that 3-2 would be
crap. Yeah,
would be
I was happy with
pretty
2-3.
impressive before we. So I think just getting the win with Death Guard's important. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously points are great, but the armies. The fact that Eldari was mainly the top four, wasn't it? I mean, it says the armies that could do well on that
The
last
final
mission.
four was Eldar, 3 Eldar and a Death Watch player.
Yeah, and then obviously you've got some weird outliers like Chaos Space Marines with Obliterators. I noticed the Obliterator spam listed well there because obviously you drop them in 9 inches away. Hope you clear it with your out of line of sight guns, and then charge 9 inches, and then you're in the opponent's one, and then you've bought the fight in their deployment zone. So there's skews like that also work onto it, but armies like Death Guard, basically 70% not even the Death Guard is slow. Other armies just can't get across the board.
Yeah.
Not on that mission. So yeah, I've played it in practice games and thought it was a bit weird as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense just removing the middle objective. Then going on to sort of post games then. Yeah, no, I was going to say so. Cause I mean, obviously there's some. I know it's been a long one and things like that, so won't sort of keep going forever. But I was curious, after having sort of played that, are there any change you would make to the list? I mean, obviously we talked about Beast and Nurgle. I was quite impressed with the spawn choice. I mean, when I played the Death Guard, when I played my Death Guard practice games, I found that the second cultist squad was nearly always redundant. I know you just pointed out the example of how you used it to get like something contagion range in your first game, I think Custodes, and then played the strat, and that was quite a clever play. But I mean, are there any change? For example, would you even try and fit in a second Predator, or he's still super sold on the Sorcerer? Poxwalker's definitely 20, not 10. Anything that sort of came from it.
Yeah, I think right now I don't think I'll actually change much. I think I'm quite happy with, like I said, I might try a Beast and Nurgle instead of Nurglings, but it's a hard sell at the same time because 2 units versus 1 unit. We'll have to see. I'm quite happy with how the lists are. I'm not happy with where Death Guards are. I'm not happy with the list, if that makes sense. Like, I want to be using stuff like Plague Marines, Blight Lords, etc. But right now I think this is the best we've got, and it's probably what I'll be using. I'm hoping September changes that. I'm hoping in September I can tell you this list garbage, you don't play it anymore. It's not the most fun list, it's not the most interactive list, but it's the only thing I've found so far that actually works. So I don't think I'm changing too much at the moment. Again, maybe just look at replacing a Nurgling and maybe with something else, because the Nurglings are great, but the fact they had 0 OC lost me that Genestealer Cult game. If that was a unit of OC, they could have held it. But because OC 0 didn't. But again, at the same time, Nurglings aren't there for holding objectives. They're there because they're very cheap, can do actions and deep strike. So it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, because obviously, like I say, I want to sort of caveat. I mean, I haven't played model for model your list, but I've played 3-player burst crawlers in Morty and tried putting in some War Dogs. I mean, I actually had some success with the War Dogs one. I wiped the floor with an all infantry marines list, but then I've also had the floor. I've also had. Yeah, I mean, when I played against Eldar, so we have a Manchester League. I played against the Meta Eldar list with the Wraith Knight and stuff. But I think it was even before the first set of nerfs, actually.
Yeah.
He went first, and I conceded at the end of his second turn because I'd lost 70% of my army.
Well, don't worry. There's some things that you just can't beat, and we just got to wait for GW to fix them, basically.
Yeah, but what I was sort of trying to sort of lead into there, I mean, I'm not a bad player. I'm not going to be sort of arrogant or silly enough or embarrassing enough to sit there and say like, oh yeah, I smash everyone. But I do better than average with Death Guard, and I've really struggled. If I'd have been at Leeds, I think I'd have gone 1-4, not 4-1. So I think to sort of the people, because I've seen your list get used on, it was Tabletop Tactics and a few other people who haven't found success with it. But when you're talking through it, I think one of the things that's also important, remember, like we mentioned, Michael Armour, and sort of giving you credit. The people who are good at the game know more about as much about other people's armies as they do their own. You know, like when you're talking about other people's, you knew what they could do, blah blah blah. You knew what you could do and what you couldn't do, so you knew what you were going into, and you were able to make decisions. Because the reality is, knowing the rules doesn't make you the best player in the world, but knowing the rules helps you make decisions, and the people who make the right decisions are the best players, and making those decisions quickly as well, so you can do it within the time zone. Also, the quicker you make decisions, the more time you've bought yourself to make the next decision, and you kind of, especially when you play on the clock at a tournament, you know, you're putting the onus on the other person and sort of making them think and making them, you know, making them sort of doubt and question themselves. And I think, you know, the fact that you were able to sort of run through and talk about the Genestealer Cult, this strat, I could tell you picked the models up, but I didn't know exactly how I was doing it, but I knew it was legit, and I knew that because you could, I tried to do this, but I didn't fully understand, whereas you know, I think that's one of the reasons why you're getting the results as well. So the people listening and sort of think, oh, I've ran this is not working for me. It's not an idiot-proof list, and you need to know a lot more and think and know what your opponent's doing. Because you've said this, you know, when you've run through this, it's become quite clear you're very conscious of target priority, and you're also very conscious of kind of like what's realistic, you know, against Custodes, like you said, the go turn, you know, from turn one, there's no point in starting to shoot the 10-man brick if you're going to kill one and then it's going to resurrect and steal movement, as you correctly said. You know, shoot the other things that you can kill, can't, you know, and I think that's kind of been quite apparent from sort of this one and the one where you went 5-0, that, you know, Death Guard have got a chance, but you know Death Guard, and you also seem to have the other indexes as well. Yeah. Certainly a lot more than I do, and I think that's kind of adding up to, you know, also thinking about probability and math, and
definitely,
you know, and because, you know, when you speak to the other top players and watch them play, for example, I'll give an example with Matt Robinson. Matt Robinson was at Element Games giving another lad I know a coaching lesson, and we were doing our club's night, and I was the extra guy, you know, didn't need to play. So I went and had a chat with Matt, and I know Matt is a great guy, and I was watching, so basically I got some free coaching, and watching him micro move and, you know, talk, the coaching the guys and saying, well, this is what I do. It was like, like I say, he was playing 3D chess compared to, you know, what most of us play Warhammer like. And I think, you know, your brain's obviously sort of along there. So the reason I'm trying to say this at the end is, you know, the people who are sort of struggling with Death Guard, don't be put down by it. And I think the fact that Aiden's doing well, it kind of helps us all sort of realise that if we, you know, those things that I've mentioned are some of the things to improve on and think about, and, you know, trying to skill up and sort of things like that, they're the areas to focus, I think, as well as sort of obviously looking at our indexes and trying to sort of, you know, find things that work. Because one of the things I was really impressed, as I mentioned, was the fact that you had the Chaos Spawn. Like, I wrote a list similar to yours with Beast and Nurgle, 2 squads of Chaos Spawn and 2 Predators. Again, it might have enough to play the mission, but you know, to me it had a bit more damage output, and I liked what you were doing with the, in my head I can see how the Spawn add something, and, you know, you can take the centre objectives and make people come to you, and then you can come out from wars and use Typhus to sort of charge and close gaps, but blah blah blah. Anyway, like, I think having listened to you talk, and that's something that's, because obviously one of the reasons we do this podcast and have this channel is to help people get better, specifically with Death Guard, and
that's what we want,
you know,
really. We want everyone to sort of learn. Like, anyone that is struggling right now, really don't be hard on yourself. It is like, I would say round 1. So as you do a tournament, if you keep winning, rounds get harder and harder and harder. Round 1 through 5 felt like round 5 times, if that makes sense. Like, none of those games, we paired par the Eldar one, but that was just, you know, lucky pairing matchup into a rock paper scissors list. But par that, like, I was so exhausted at the end because every game had to be played as if it was like a round 5, because Death Guard is in that state at the moment. So don't be hard on yourself if you are struggling with Death Guard, and if you are waiting for buffs, that's fine as well. It's a rough time out there. I think Will agrees with me on that one happily.
100%. I mean,
horrible.
like I said, that's why I took Knights, because, I mean, you know, I'll be honest, I decided I was going to drop for a second day. I didn't do badly. I went
you were
2-1.
fun, weren't you?
Yeah, I went for fun, you know, and I enjoyed it because I have Chaos Knights, and I also have Chaos Space Marines, and I've been running to my Death Guard as Chaos Space Marines units. If I was taking Chaos Space Marines to an event, I'll be honest, I would probably go, because I'd be binging them and trying to go 4-1 at least, or maybe even push for 5-0, because I'd be trying to chase the meta with the build that I've gone for. But with Knights, I like them. They're my other fun army. But, you know, Death Guard they're my jam. That's why we do this podcast. And at the moment, for me, I probably should have took them the least. I'd already decided I was going to drop them the second day. So if I was going for fun, I probably should have just took them, had fun. But I've had a few games where it just hasn't been fun. Like I said, that Eldar one where I'd conceded after playing one turn at the end of his second turn. I've had a few other games like that against. What was the other one that I had a really miserable game into? I can't remember what it was now. I think my brain's starting to blank it out because it was so painful. Yeah. It might have been an Eldar again. I played Eldar quite a few times recently. I'm so people listen to this, I'm not necessarily taking Death Guard to events at this moment because unless I'm going there for a social, I live across North Element Games where we do our TOing and stuff. If it was there, maybe I would go because it's, just have laughs and it's people that I know. But if I travelled, say, because one of the reasons that I didn't deal with Leeds because it was travelling and I didn't have a hotel sorted out and I said, I don't know. I'm not bothered enough about Chaos Knights to play 4 games. I don't think I'm going to go 5-0 with them. And even if I do get a lucky 4-1, so what? Do you know what I mean? I'm not bothered. Like, I'm not chasing the Chaos Knights faction ranking, and I'm not going to take them to events. The moment the Death Guard, there's a build that I either have found that works for me or, whatever, I'm not going to keep taking them to events. So, for me, that was kind of my angle on it. But like was, basically what we're trying to allude to with Death Guard is I think the people who only own Death Guard, don't be disheartened. I'd ran them a lot through 8th and 9th where they were trashed here, and I took them to some more events, and at least then they'll have more than what they've got going on now for average Joe. Myself being average Joe, but I think hopefully there's going to be some light in September. My personal premonition here is that when September comes, I think we're going to get a little boost, but I don't think it's going to be anything meaningful. I think they're going to put Plague Marines to 18 points and go, there you go. It's going to be like, mate, 18-point Plague Marines, are you off your head? Death Guard need -1 damage, 5 up feel no pain against mortals, and the same points cost to even be B tier is the reality because the move's so slow and the game's about movement and stuff like that. They need a lot. I mean, the index just doesn't make any sense. Our thing is toughness. We reduce toughness, but then we have lethal hits, so toughness doesn't matter. Like, whoever wrote the Death Guard index they just need to go back and just start from scratch. I mean, we've got the Codex coming, so we know it's not going to be like this for the whole edition. And if they were smart, GW, they've put the roadmap out to a point. Maybe they'll bump Death Guard up to be sort of at the end of the ones they've announced to kind of give us that little boost. But Death Guard, I hear Votan as well through a couple of guys that we know who play Votan. Apparently their Codexes or Index is
awful.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
I reckon it's worse than ours.
Yeah, fair. I mean, this is it. I mean, obviously Sisters I know are in a sad position as well. So, Guard I know through 9th, they were busted as hell at one point at the end of it. But, the people who really loved it and people did start pulling out wins. And, the Admech guy, wasn't there? Me and Ian had a wander around the hall at Leeds after...
there was a fellow who went form with Admech.
Yes. So people are doing it and... Yeah, believe in your dreams. So Death Guard guys.
Well, someone in the chat just put, I've learnt to play to score, thanks to you guys. Now I'm the terror of my local game store with my Death Guard. A guy even wants us to ban me from bringing them. He doesn't know that my second army is Custodes. Well, I guarantee you, if he bans your Death Guard, he'll sure as hell regret you showing up with Custodes.
Well, there we go, I mean.
Would you consider dropping the Nurglings and Spawn for a Taliban and 5 Plague Marines? Tried your list and felt starved for CP. So yeah, CP can be starved. I would consider dropping something for a Tallyman, not for Plague Marines. Like, I would just put a Tallyman. If I'm taking a Tallyman, he's just sitting on his own in the back. That's it. Don't need to have a unit of him. If he dies, he dies. But I can't use Plague Marines at the moment.
He should be a lone operative.
Yeah.
Tallyman should be a lone operative.
Sadly, as it is, Plague Marines just start doing it for me. If you do take Plague Marines, you need a Rhino. If you get a Rhino, then it's like another 80 points, and it's just like, ugh. Yeah, he just put that in. It was also against Eldar with Raven actual decan and support up, and mate, I'm just gonna be honest, no amount of Plague Marines plus Typhus is gonna save you from that one. It's a Tallyman, sorry. It's just bullshit, mate. Don't feel bad about it, just write it off. That's what you gotta do at the moment. Some games like that are just so stupid, and some armies are just so busted, you just gotta be like, yep, what can I do?
Yeah, that's it. But one thing I would say, because I know we're sort of round the close, and obviously we can answer Ethan can answer some more chats. I know it's his opinion is a bit more weight than mine. But one of the things I would say is, it's a shame at the moment, but I'm hoping in the next patch they're going to make a way that you can take unaligned units. Because I got excited when I saw the Ambles rules and sent a message to Aidan, and we said, like, mate, if you've seen this, like, is this as good as I think it is? And then one of my other mates pointed out, at the moment there's no way to take unaligned units, so we can't take ambles and other things. But if they do, the amble would fill a hole for Death Guard. Like that's another unit to sort of look in. And if tournaments ever say you can take legends, I know the whole point is they're not, but you know, yeah, possessed are really good. Annoyingly.
Let's go.
Yeah. I would start every list with 10 to 15. I think just to run around in the missions and stand somewhere and not be terrified about a line of sight because they've got a 5 bin run. But you know, it's not crazy wish listing, but that kind of stuff. It is sort of, you know, it's not realistically not going to happen. But the unaligned units one might, because it seems odd that they've given them rules, but they haven't given them a way to put in. Yeah. So if they patch that, then things like the amble and things like that, it's worth a look, basically. Battle Scribe, by the way, as well, people who are listening, is updated. GW app is not the only place, and if you want to look at the rules of the amble and things, you know, just add it to a list in Battle Scribe and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I mean, for me, I haven't got anything else I can think to add. About yourself, Ian, anything or any chats that you want to run through or anything you want to add in?
No, just unlucky to Magnus did nothing wrong, whose Typhus rolled 3 ones in a row for his Destroyer Hive. It does happen, unfortunately. But, you know. But yeah, part of that, no, I'm good. I think it's a good place to call it. We just hit 2 hours, so I don't want to keep going any longer. Unfortunately, I do have to get ready for work tomorrow and whatnot, so that's going to be fun. But thank you to everyone that sort of joined us for this. Sorry, it took quite a while to get through. Hopefully, learnt some cool little things, how to beat certain matchups, how to kill Custodes over and over and over and over. But yeah, I've not really got much else to add. September, I would love to see a Salt Keyword. Yeah, if we got a Salt Keyword in our Flamers, that would be awesome. I would love that, because it's also good for secondary play. Advancing Terminators, being able to do actions would be really nice, I won't lie.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. One thing I'll add, just from an admin point of view, obviously when Aiden's mic did drop, it sounded fine on YouTube, but in Riverside where we're recording, which we put on Spotify and thing, it is just recording through his computer mic. So I'm going to get the previous episode, talk about Aiden going 5-1 up on Spotify, get it sorted out. But when we do get this, I'm saying this more for the people who are listening, we will put this up on Spotify as well, but just when the audio quality drops on Aiden's mic, that's what's happening. It's because his headset's gone and it's coming through the computer. So I'll be able to hopefully tidy it up a bit, but just so people understand. Now I've got the headset now. It used to be me who had the terrible cheap mic, and then I've got a good mic, and now it's Aiden's turn. Sod's law, innit?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, but I'm not sure. But again, congratulations
Thanks,
to Aiden. Like I say, hopefully you're not going to make JW think the Death Guard are fine. And
we need help, please.
Yeah, Morty should be at least 50 more points, and Playburst Caller should be about 500 points each. I mean, you know, is that not about fair?
Yeah, that sounds right, yeah. We'll go with that.
But I'll leave it there, and thanks very much for listening, guys, and Ian, I'll let you have the final words.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Like I said, I hope you managed to pick some up. Good luck out there. Just have fun. Have fun. If you're not having fun at the moment, take a little break. Let's all see what September brings. I'm not sure if I'll probably do a little episode at some point. But basically, I think we're just waiting mainly on the September update now. I've not got anything else planned for now for tournament wise. LGT really does depend on that balance patch and whether I feel like it's worth the effort to go London and have to stay in a London hotel. We'll see. But yeah, I'm happy. Will, guess what?
Oh, what?
Unfortunately, you're now rank 2 in the UK for Death Guard because I've took it off you.
Oh no! There you go. Well, at least we're 1 and 2 in the UK. I didn't even know didn't even know Manchester was still carrying me that so.
Yeah, man. Alright, guys.
There you go. But I think one thing to add there, not to I think we should do another episode for the points. But I think we'll probably try and do a guest episode. We've got a few people that we might like to get on, and then we'll try and maybe do something a bit more around. Maybe some wish listing, or maybe it's just we talked about before, wacky list ideas that people have been trying and failing with, or maybe it's just do something more, fluff based. We'll think of something to tie the gap, Yeah. But thanks for listening, guys, and
thank you very much. Also, Cludge, nice one, 7-3. Keep going, lad. Sorry you've tuned in at the end.
There you go.
It is what it is. Alright, thank you.